All right, calling open meeting back to order
At 8:20.
at 8:20. All right.
Okay, so before we move on to the specific amendment that the engineers and the attorneys came up with, are there any other questions on the amendments that were presented up on the screen at the beginning of the meeting? Because I'm about to make a motion to adopt those amendments as presented in Globo. So if there's any other public hearing, oh,
What you need,
you
Kevin?
good back there, Kevin? So if there's any more public hearing on those initial amendments that were made, I'm going to go ahead and make that motion really soon. So please come up and talk about them if you.
Just to clarify, we're not adopting the ordinance.
We're not
just
adopting the
adopting
ordinance.
the amendments
We're
to the
adopting the
ordinance.
amendments to get a clean document to the public before the June meeting, and planning and zoning, so that you can review a clean document.
We're going to have to come back and amend the amendments with Mr. Buddies.
Yeah,
Do we have to?
that's just gonna make it clear.
We don't have to, I think it'll just make it clearer to do that.
Hey guys, Tommy Hughes, 15 Colonial. Look, I just had I just wanted you to explain this a little bit to me. Line 334, 335. I think I understand what it means, but I was hoping you could explain it one more time.
Sure, give me 1 second here, and I'm going to scroll on the computer as well.
That's 234?
334 and 335, or
you.
333 to 335. I've just,
Paragraph 8, general provisions.
Yes, so I will say that, you talking about the new amendment part, or just?
yeah, the new amendment point, and I
Okay.
think, and I looked it up in the code, it says the applicant is not a private subdivision, and you said something about that, but I didn't really
Right.
understand it.
So because this is a private subdivision,
Mhm.
he cannot seek any kind of administrative re-subdivision to move
Okay.
lot lines around and stuff like that.
Okay,
And so this allows him to do that. He
Okay.
can't create more lots, he can't reduce lots smaller than what the minimums are. He can't do it if it's more than an acre worth of land, he can't do it if it's more than 6 lots.
okay. It's just the lot lines.
It's just the lot
Whatever.
lines, and this is, I guess the illustration for this is, you've got a couple of hundred, I got it. You got a couple of 100-foot lots. I can't afford a 100-foot lot, but you can afford a 115-foot lot.
No.
All right, so he can draw mine to 85 and draw yours to 115, and it's still 2 lots,
Okay,
just shifting the lot line.
so
That's all.
it's just
So-
about the lot lines.
Yes,
So
sir.
it's subject to whose approval?
It's subject to the, whatever, it's city professionals and the mayor, but it says it a lot more proper than that in the ordinances, but it's in the ordinances.
But you're carving it out of the ordinance, correct?
The only thing I'm carving out is that he can't do it because he's a private subdivision.
Okay, so anybody else that has 2 lots in Harahan
They
can go
can
to
do
the
this.
mayor, and this wording gives the developers on Colonial the same rights that I would have if I had 4 lots on Hickory.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Now, we're on the amendments, okay? All right.
Well, okay. I can't ask a general question.
Tell me
You
the
could
li-
ask whatever you want.
I wanted to ask, what is the 750 cap?
Tell me the line. Oh,
That's number 36 or line 324 to 327?
sure. So, so I explained this at the planning and zoning meeting, and I'll try to do it again here. The language, again, words are very important. It says the maximum amount due from owner. If you go back to the beginning of this agreement, you'll see that owner is defined as JW Colonial. The maximum amount they will pay to the city is $750,000. Now, individual lot owners may have more due in this agreement, okay?
Okay, but it has nothing to do with like infrastructure or anything like that?
Well, that's what, all of that money is for infrastructure.
Correct.
That 750,000 is
That's
for-
going to cover,
That's for infrastructure
Yeah,
to
yeah.
us, no.
Oh, okay, I'm
That's
sorry.
That's not in his development, no.
No, no.
That's infrastructure
streets-
outside of his
that's
development.
infrastructure outside his development.
okay.
He's still,
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
so it's
okay,
also,
all
so in
right.
here somewhere, it's also saying he's got to pay for the construction of his streets. And like I said, all the stuff on Jefferson Highway that he needs to change to do the DI, or the traffic impact analysis, he's responsible for all those costs.
Okay, so then, I guess this kind of ties into this. So y'all keep talking about the fact that they put in a lift station specifically for the Blake, which is great. But that's not my issue about the sewerage. My issue is capacity of the plant.
Great question.
And so suppose, we do exceed capacity at some point in one of his phases, is he then not required to give money to the city to make, or would the city be obliged to provide that to him without him having to come up with any money?
So long as, so in this agreement, so long as the payments are made to the city by the owner and the additional impact fees are paid by the lot owners, we have to accommodate any capacity that
And
comes
so
from that.
you're sure, you feel really confident with this number that we'll be able to accommodate all of that development, even though we don't know how many houses we're going to have
What
yet?
happens is it's all based on a worst-case scenario, from what I understand, I guess, put it in lack of, like a layman's terms, and that's, same questions you asked, I went and asked, okay, how do you base these plans and how do you do this? And we come into a worst-case scenario basis. And so, yeah, so that's what we've been doing, and so not only do my engineers and myself agree with it, but the prior administration and her engineers also agreed with it through the MOU. And so when we got in here, our first.
That note, I'm not to correct you, but they just talked about the revised drainage plan, and I don't remember I don't know about the sewerage.
So
but-
we agree with them, and we agree with them, and so, but the plant does need it needs work. It's not capacity issue, it's the infiltration issue that we're trying to repair. So what happens is the plant becomes so infiltrated with sand or whatever, but mostly sand, that's what loses our capacity. We have the capacity. If Colonial was built out worst case scenario, we have the capacity. We're having issues with the sand on Wilson Street, and the $500,000 that he's given us allows us to go get another $2 million in matching funds to help to do that. But when I took office, it was the first thing I addressed because the Blake was permitted before I took office to tie into the manhole, which is on Wilson Street, which goes, it's the worst pipe of all of Arion. And so we knew that the plant had issues then, but we didn't know to the extent of it. And it was, not gonna lie, it was pretty rough. It was a lot of mismanagement, a lot of people just not taking pride or caring in what the heck they do. And we're addressing it all at this point. But there's some work that needs to be done, and that money that we're gonna use, we're gonna go with it and try to run, because it needs an aerator, a digester, and a bell press.
So the 500,000 gets you 2
It'll
million
give me
in
give me the
matching?
ability to go after 2 million in matching.
So what
yes.
happens if you don't get the 2 million? Are you still okay?
We're still okay, because we still have other money coming down through the Biden plan, and we also have CARES Act money in-house. And then if we come out of legislature as good as I think we did, we'll have brought in right under $1 million.
Well, Mayor, I'm gonna put to you that you're gonna get all that money long before you get the 500,000. And just as a projecting out right now, it says it's based on final. That's at least 6 months down the road, minimum, for lots 1 to 34. So just, as you plan on his work, just final, not conditional. Conditional approval, we give them
Thank you,
ability
Ms.
to go
Sue.
do it, just do it right, you're gonna get final.
So I'm gonna explain to you. The plant is basically a big swimming pool. They drained the plant down, half the pool was full of sand. So they weren't circulating the water to treat like they should. They have half the capacity. And now they got it cleaned out.
But you're right, it's a great
But
question. It's a question
we
you
are
should be
building up
asking.
more sand, because we just had an issue on Roseland, and it's a lot of sand getting through the pipes. We're working to resolve them.
It's a great
an old
question, though.
system, old system.
Please come up.
Give it to me. I'm ready.
Come
Give
up
it
to the
me.
microphone if you got it. This is,
This is the time to discuss it.
So the bones are old. The bones are
Give it to
bones
us.
are structurally sound. The guts need a little bit of work, and that's where we are. It's a great plant. They really built to the future on it. Is a great. When I came in office, I wanted to tie it to the parish. Let's go to the parish. Let's go to the parish. But let me tell you something. The parish is having just as many problems as we are, and I certainly don't want to move my problem over to becoming their problem. or their problem now becoming my problem. Let me control my own destiny, and then we'll work on this plant and get it right. So that's what we're going to use this money for, is changing out all of the guts inside the plants. And we've also, we've been working with a couple local vendors here, and I have never seen someone take interest in our city the way they have. And I mean, they work so hard, and that's what we spent today. Fluid Process and we're going through every lift station. We're yanking every pump. We're seeing what we can do better. We're seeing how we can route it. We're seeing how we can make them more congruent to save money and become more cost effective, how we can get a better SCADA system in. We even looking at like sensors for, what is it called? It's a washer. So if the washer goes bad and allows infiltration into that pump, there's a sensor for that, and none of them are hooked up. They will be hooked up by the time I'm done though, because that washer is the first line of defense before it's a seal. That seals, it's called a seal sensor. First line of defense is that seal. When that seal sensor goes off, we know we got to get that pump out before the second seal goes. And you're talking $100 versus thousands of dollars.
So we learned that today. We didn't.
Yeah, I learned
know.
that. Yeah.
There's a sensor in the pump, and if that washer goes bad,
I'll fix it on here.
we could fix it for a couple $100, $1,000. If that sensor's not hooked up, which most of them aren't hooked up,
Yeah.
the pumps burn up and 15 grand.
Yep.
So we just learned that, and we're trying to address it now. I'm not saying no.
Yeah. Well, because that could
We're
become,
still looking into that.
Yeah, it could become seriously litigated at this point, because it's going to be. It is an issue. You're correct. It's an issue, and it's going to be an issue that's going to be addressed. So, come on, Mr. D.
I have one, David Trepanier, 125 Colonial. So I'm looking, section 12, I guess line 139.
Okay, give me 1 second, please. Just so we can scroll and get there. And the scroll one's a little bit lagged because of everything it's hooked up to.
That's it. So I guess the second sentence, there shall be a singular secondary access located on Club Drive or Colonial Club Drive as determined and allowed by traffic impact analysis. I mean, I know, Tim, you were trying to explain it to me, but what is a traffic impact analysis?
Mr. Steve, Mr. Villasso, can you come help me on this one?
Well, nobody knows.
Steve.
Steve, right there,
I'm
John.
not a traffic engineer, but I'll give a planner's answer, okay?
Yes, that's what I need you to help with.
A traffic impact analysis is going to determine the volume of traffic that the project is going to generate on the streets in question. And then the traffic analysis will then make a recommendation as to how the street system should handle that volume, whether it should be widened, or a new street should be built, or should there be some restriction on the traffic on the other end. So, I mean, from a planner's perspective, we ask projects to provide a traffic impact analysis on big commercial projects to determine whether or not there's enough parking, whether enough access, whether there should be a way to get out of the back of the project. On a residential project, it's the same thing. You look at the impact of the density, how many cars, the frequency of the cars, and so that's what a TIA is.
So and from what now we're talking about the road out of the back. So the road in the back will service most of the development. Basically, Colonial will service, just for the most part, the houses that are on Colonial. So I mean, I'm guessing, I'm not asking to hold you to it, but do you see a need to where you think we may have to move Club Drive at any point? I mean, because you're not having that much access, and is there that much density in that to force a movement of that road in a traffic study?
The analysis will tell you what the volume of the cars are. You know, it's residential development, they're single-family homes, they're relatively large lots, if not very large lots. You know, and the GIA will also include things like, you know, the average number of cars people have, the average number of trips they make, the speed of the roadway, the condition of the roadway. People ask a lot of questions tonight about the, you know, whether the roadway is broken up or something. So, you know, I don't know what it will result in, but in order to justify, let's say, building a new roadway, you need a lot of traffic.
Right.
Okay, but if the TIA says that, well, then you got to do it. You know.
Who pays for that?
I'll take a shot at it as well. This was part of the reason I said that I wanted a TIA to dictate where that went, or if it gave me an option, it's also a service vehicle, so when that fire truck, I don't know what, taking at that and making a couple calls, I don't know what they're gonna say about the fire truck being able to come in on club. Even if, I was like, man, even if I give them another 10 foot, you know, make club something crazy, get a fire truck get in there and come in there. So not having not having that answer, I said, all right, we'll let the TIA dictate it.
Yeah, and it's just something, I mean, the neighbors are concerned about, I think it's something we
Sure.
should be concerned about. You know, it changes the grand scheme of things, but even from what we're looking, even if the road had to be moved, it wouldn't be moved very far or maybe wide. And I mean, I believe it or not, Club Drive is pretty wide.
The right-of-way is pretty wide. I've seen the right-of-way map or a survey, and the fire truck comment, you know, we deal with fire truck access a lot, and it's all about the width of the road, whether they can make the turn, or whether they can back up. And the only solutions to those things is widen the right-of-way.
Right.
But you know, that's what the fire department's gonna tell you. You can let Mr. St. Cyr tell you that.
Okay.
He will.
Okay. So that's what we'll try to do, Mr. Dave. We'll try to make sure, we'll try to take every precaution possible. If we gotta widen the right of way, we'll just widen it a little bit, but I think there's plenty of room.
I hope so, because
Yeah.
the only way I can explain it is like an equation. What you do to one side affects on the other. So if we only had 76 houses, then we wouldn't have to worry about a possible entrance on Colonial. You know, that's,
Right.
he's
No,
going to
I-
say, well,
I-
in 1777, I
agree.
can put the entrance there, but it, you know,
I don't
this
think-
word he's paying for it.
I don't think
It could
the
be-
residential was ever limited to 76. I think it was limited to 76 on 40 acres, is that correct?
And that must be my misunderstanding, because when I read 1777, it says no more houses than 76 houses.
I
On the
thought that
40
was
acres,
on the 40 acres.
Then you have 17 for the pond, 15 for commercial, that leaves 16 acres. So somewhere, am I wrong so far? All right, so somewhere in that 16 acres, somebody has, as an attorney, I guess I'm learning more about being a lawyer. It's how you take these words, how you can twist them. So evidently, somebody came up with an idea to, let's build another 50 houses. And so we talked about the spirit. You said the spirit earlier. To me, the spirit was 76 houses. If we go to court, the first person we're going to bring on the stand is Vinnie Mosca and say, Vinnie, did you mean 76 houses or you meant 126 houses? I don't know. You know, do you think it was, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but do you think it was going to be more? To me, it says no more than 76.
When I read the development agreement, I envisioned more than 76 houses being allowed on the property. I never put a pencil to it. I never figured if that was 100. And I don't really know what, even if we built the most lots, if the developer built the most lots he could on the 40 acres, I don't know how many houses that would be under the existing R1 code. 75 by 100 plus streets. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that 76 goes to.
When I read 1777, that's where I was mistaken the other night with Mr. Ducote. I thought it only meant 76 houses. I can take the spirit out and everything else now. There's an opportunity for you, somebody has advised somebody to put more houses on it, and I get it, so, thank you.
Thank you. So only because it's a change, that we're making in this agreement altogether, I'm going to read what the original development agreement says. It's section 5C, and it says, JW Colonial agrees to limit the number of home sites on the approximately 40 acres to no more than 76. So to me, that's pretty clear that within that 40 is 76. There could be others somewhere else.
I didn't take it that way. Maybe
Okay.
I didn't do the math right, or, I'd like to know, I'd like to ask Vinnie, when he passed it in 2014, did he think it meant any more than 76?
Can I tell you what I thought it meant?
Were you on the
I was on the council.
Yeah, so
I thought it meant on the 40 acres. But I also thought the agreement said no houses on Colonial, period, from front to back. No houses on Colonial, 76 on there, and then they had the back, which they could put whatever they talked about, putting large acre lots, which nothing was defined at the time. That's the way I understood it at the time.
that's the first time we ever agreed on anything.
Might-
Hopefully it won't be the last.
Okay, any more public comments on the amendments that were offered at the beginning of the meeting?
Before we vote on this,
Well, I'm gonna open, well, I think we need a closed public
okay,
hearing. Move to close public hearing.
Motion by Councilman Asbill, second by Councilman, move, close public hearing, all in favor?
yay.
Yeah. Okay.
Council discussion, right?
All right.
So my point is, I'm not sure we're gonna get through my comments tonight, and the real reason is,
I think we will.
I didn't finish my comments. I didn't have time to get through the entire document and write down all my comments. So I mean, if
We got 3 more hours.
I'll sit here and do it, but I'm not as fast as some people, but I'm happy to do it that way. And I want to get it done, and I'd like to, get something that we can agree upon. Now, first thing I want to.
Are you amending your proposed ordinance?
No, the four pages I gave you, of which we
I
voted.
got it.
Yeah, that is, I looked at my proposed ordinance. I looked at the Councilman Asbill's proposed ordinance. I looked at the things that didn't make it to his amendments, the amendments we discussed tonight, and I went through them and put the things I want to discuss as proposed amendments
In his ordinance?
in his ordinance.
So what about the body of your ordinance?
The body of my ordinance will,
Because I'll
my
be honest with
ordinance-
you,
my ordinance will-
when they both popped up, it's so confusing now
Well-
because we have an ordinance that says this with these amendments.
Right.
And now there's another ordinance that's coming up.
and and Councilman Asbill
And I'll
asked
say
me
a
at the
lot of
last
Mr. Buddy's recommendations were adopted in my
Absolutely.
amendments.
No,
a lot
I get
of
it.
them.
You can
And I'm
understand the
very
public.
appreciative.
Oh, yeah,
If they're
yeah,
looking
yeah.
at the agenda, there's 2 ordinances talking about the ADA.
It
It's
is
just a little
confusing.
confusing.
It is
So,
confusing.
Buddy
Perhaps
said
it
that-
should have been done
Councilman Wheeler,
differently.
after tonight, I'm more than likely, high probability, going to withdraw my ordinance.
Well, I think
I'm gonna
one
want
of
it.
them
I'm gonna
needs
want
to.
it to be. I'm gonna want it to be, on the
Okay,
agenda.
no, I understand.
And I'm more than
And I
likely
respect
going to
that.
withdraw it,
I respect that.
assuming we get an opportunity to discuss my comments.
Let's go.
And then,
Okay.
council
All right.
votes on them.
Let's go.
Now, having said that, the comments we're about to discuss have not been agreed to by the developer. So the world knows it.
Wait, who what?
It's okay.
Comments-
Let's
These
just-
these comments have not been agreed to by the developer, but are there,
So and here's the point. I'm not trying to say what the developer is going to agree to.
Right.
This is an agreement between 2 parties, the city and the developer. The council gets to opine on what goes in that agreement. So if the council thinks anything I bring up in these comments is important enough, they'll vote it in as an amendment to the ordinance, and then you got to have negotiations with the developer. If the council doesn't think they're important enough, the council's going to vote not to amend. So there's
we're
an
gonna go
opportunity
amendment?
for the council to read the comments, listen to why I think they're important, and then vote on it.
okay.
So
So
we're,
for-
the first, go ahead.
So what I'd like to do is
I think we need to do one at a time.
make a motion to adopt the amendments that I've presented in Globo as presented. That's my motion.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor by Councilman Asbill to adopt the amendments in Globo as presented. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilman Chatelain. All in favor?
Yeah,
Yay.
yeah.
Yay.
Yay.
I don't vote. All right, so you got 3 yeas, 1 nay, 1 absent.
Correct.
Okay,
Okay?
all right. So now Mr. Buddy.
So
that
now,
motion passes.
what-
Sir? We can't.
Bring this up.
No, I know that. I'm
Yeah.
just saying I would prefer to do it another way. I don't think, this isn't anything that,
Okay.
a big deal. Yeah, I understand.
make a further motion to amend, oh boy, I gotta find the paragraph again, pardon me. Paragraph 25. At the end of that paragraph, we're going to add the sentence, any updated DIA shall meet or exceed the more restrictive standards set by Jefferson Parish or Harahan Code of Ordinance drainage regulations and/or the initial DIA.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor by Councilman Asbill to.
Do we have to open it?
We need to open
We
a
do,
public
and I'm
hearing.
gonna type it in here.
You go ahead and type it, Jay. Thank you.
Okay, anybody want to come speak on that? We'll go ahead and open for public hearing while he's typing it in. All right. No
Wait,
one-
why don't you let him type it
Okay.
fully and let people see it?
Okay.
Because I don't know if everybody has a copy.
7.5 hours.
Cough drop.
So what? We getting this
Scott,
done
you want a
tonight.
cough drop?
I don't- This, we, by
That's
law
voluntary
with this
flavor.
council meeting, don't end
Actually,
until midnight.
Luden's.
We getting this done.
So is that really a cough drop?
Didn't we change that? Didn't we remove the midnight?
No, but as soon
Oh,
as
no, you
As-
got till 11:59.
As soon as Bill's finishes amendments, I'm gonna make a motion. to leave.
No, you're not.
Have at it. I could do this in June. I mean,
Let's not.
Let's read it again.
So the,
or we could do it before
I
that.
highlighted the updated, the amendment there. Says any updated DIA shall meet or exceed the more restrictive standards set by Jefferson Parish or Harahan Code of Ordinance, drainage regulations, and/or the initial DIA. So the drainage impact analysis will always exceed the current standards set.
Okay, so a motion on the floor to amend paragraph number 25, to add the following verbiage that Councilman Asbill just typed up on the monitor. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second?
Second by Councilman Buddy, all in favor?
Yay.
Yay.
4 yeas, 1 absent. It has been amended, okay.
So you have to go back and vote on that amendment now,
Right now?
because we voted on it.
No, we're only doing amendments. If we vote again, we're voting on the whole adoption.
And what was the 3-1 vote? Your amendments in global, right? You just amended it. Okay.
So,
So make sure there's no misunderstanding.
Okay, y'all ready?
yeah.
All right, Mr. Tom, you have the floor.
All right. We're going to take them in order here. The first one was,
Let me ask, does the developer have a copy of this?
I'm not sure.
Give him Craig.
There you go. The references in this document, Danny, are to the Councilman Asbill's proposed ordinance before the last few changes you made today. So they may be off a line or two. I think we already addressed number 1, the whereas, in the resolution. So I think that's done.
Okay.
The next one, I'd like to come back to, based upon how we get through the others. And what the next item is an addition.
Can we take a recess?
Hey, Mr. Buddy, we need some more
We need
copies.
some more copies. People don't.
Well, sure, yeah, let's take a recess.
We're going to call the meeting back to order at
8:55.
8:55. All right?
So everybody has a copy, yes?
Yes.
Let's go.
Where Ms. Bent went. Hope she didn't leave us.
Oh, okay.
You ready? Okay, Mr.
Yeah.
Tom, we ready to go?
Under resolution, number 1, that whereas has already been addressed, so it's resolved. Under attachment A, amended and restated, and I abbreviated it. Number 1, these are whereases which I proposed in my ordinance to discuss what the city, point out some of the changes. I took 2 out of, that are proposed in my ordinance that related to the ingress on Colonial and one other item that seemed to be resolved by mutual agreement between the parties so far, to put the road in off Jefferson Highway, the main road. So what I'm going to propose right now is we come back to the whereases if necessary. So we skip to number 2 on the next page, line 87 of Councilman Asbill's draft. 87, number 5. I'd like to delete, unless we've got some clarifications on setbacks, residential, comma, detached, 0 lot line homes, such as garden homes and patio homes with minimum lot regulations as specified in R2B. What we don't have here with this verbiage, I'm sorry, it's 87 point, I'm sorry, I'm reading out of line here.
Yeah, so I'll say, I know where you are. So we're in paragraph 5B, and we'll say that the amendments that we just adopted specific lot restrictions and setbacks for front, rear, and side yard. And it was adopted 35 by 80 with side yard setback 3 feet on each side, 10-foot rear, 10-foot front.
Okay, and so, thank you, that was something you did today.
And it should be on your screen. Is everybody still got their?
Well, Cowboy had to grab mine, he had to go, but I got it.
Okay, and I'm happy with that, and the other council members can decide if those are acceptable. Well, as it was previously drafted, and I appreciate the modification, there was no setbacks. So
Right.
effectively, you could have built these units a foot apart.
Right.
So, yeah, touching even. All right, so I am going to use the term pass on number 2.
Number 2.
Good.
Okay.
My number 3, and it may be, it's been addressed.
We did add it in there.
Let's look at the extent it was addressed, please, Jason. That would be 6B. Let's see what we have in 6B.
Wait, 6B, I'm sorry?
Well, I'm sorry, it wouldn't be 6B.
No.
Where would it have,
It's down here.
Bob? That was,
So I think it's paragraph 6, is it 99?
It's paragraph 22.
About the stormwater management area.
Is that what that's addressing?
22 actually starts with, it's on line 203.
okay.
It's on 92 now. Well, yeah, on that one's probably 2.
And my
203.
question here is, if the maintenance of the stormwater facility 10 years from now is not being done according to design and intention, it's going to have a devastating effect on the drainage.
Sure.
Say it fills up like the plant fills up. It's not going to
Right.
hold the water.
Right.
It's paramount that the city is able to enforce the provisions of this clause.
Right.
And a fine has to be significant enough to get somebody's attention.
Right.
I'm not sure if you didn't change this from your draft you sent Sunday, I'm not sure this has enough teeth. Let's just assume for a minute the pond's half silted in and it's not functioning as designed, it hasn't been maintained. So it's going to have half as much detention capacity.
Sure.
A lot of water's going to be running in the streets.
So what was added yesterday and you got sent to you is highlighted there, and that is language from Attorney Best that he thought was sufficient to hold the property owner or the stormwater management area maintainer accountable.
So is it, and maybe I should ask Attorney Best, can the city pass an ordinance under this agreement with the restrictions placed on the city? Can we pass an ordinance a year from now, or 2 years, or 5 years from now regarding the maintenance of that pond?
The language that we included refers to the Harahan Code of Ordinances, Chapter 58, which is the chapter for abatement of nuisances. That's primarily used for grass, weeds,
Right.
junk, and debris, but there is language in there that permits the city to give notice to the owner of the property, require them to abate the nuisance, which in this case, if the detention pond is not functioning the way that it's supposed to, the city could send them a notice. And if they don't respond and remedy that, the city can go out there and do the work and then they can charge the owner of the property 100% of the cost of doing the work, plus the cost that the city incurs to do the work themselves, and then place a lien on the property to collect that entire amount from the owner.
So
of the
keep in
property.
mind that this is a detention pond. I'm not sure who's gonna own it at the end of the day.
The commercial group's gonna be in charge.
Well, they're not gonna own it though. So who is the city going to
So,
have enforcement against?
the updated ordinance that the nuisance ordinance that we adopted, lists interested parties as someone you can enforce the regulations against. So, to me, whoever the maintenance contract is with, here, the owners association is the interested party that you would, find in violation.
Wouldn't it make more sense to clearly put in here who the city has a right to go against? So there's no debate, there's no litigation. And I had drafted in my ordinance a very complicated, probably overly complicated and provision.
Well, in there it says, upon the occurrence of a violation, the city may subject the offending party.
But here's my point, Carrie. If the offending party is the owner of the property we're going to go remediate and try to sue. We can't seize and sell the detention pond. It's not a practical remedy. Assuming we could under the law, it's not practical. You need to be able to go against, and in my case, the owner didn't agree to this, a combination of the commercial property owners and the homeowners association. Because you got to have somebody that is going to reimburse you
So,
for the maintenance.
it's against the commercial parcel. The
The
commercial
commercial parcel's responsible for.
But it doesn't, first of all, we're a party now to the majority of the commercial part. The owners, the developers are the owners of, what, about 11 of the 15 acres? The majority. So we need to be able to go against, at the very least, those, if we're going after the commercial owners, the agreement's got to provide that we can go after those, the owners in perpetuity of those 11 acres. Because you can't just seize and sell the detention pond. It's just, I mean, it's not a practical.
Okay, so in the spirit of trying to come up with something, do you have a suggested specific amendment?
Oh, yeah.
Or was that whole,
It was that whole paragraph, which I don't think is, well, what I learned earlier this week, or last week, I'm sorry, was that the HOA doesn't exist and the owners don't intend to create it yet. So this verbiage isn't going to work. But I'm going to suggest something, and it might require, okay, it's going to require a couple of things.
Okay, what you got?
It's going to require that defining who the city can go against, and they have to be a party to this agreement, and it has to be against their successors' assigns. So if they sell the lot, and the lot gets sold 3 times in the future, then there is a binding right by the city to be able to go against that person. And I pray that it's never an issue, but if it is an issue, it's going to
Right.
be a big issue.
that's what I just said.
So, Jason, if you look at, look at subsection B and read on, this is kind of the gist of it, kind of midway. Couldn't format it any better, I apologize.
Okay, we gotta take out Colonial Club HOA.
Right. Right here.
Mr. Suffren and Danny, looking at number 3 down there, D, about midway down
On Mr. Buddy's paper.
on Mr. Buddy's paper. I'm sorry. Colonial Center owners. It references Colonial Center owners. Who is that? Is that a thing?
No.
Not a thing?
It was in the ECR, I think.
Who does the current ECR cover?
Edward Suffren, counsel for the developer. The ECR covers the commercial property and establishes the stormwater maintenance area. The entity in control of the stormwater area is going to be the commercial association.
But it's not right now.
I think that association has not yet been formed.
It's owned by one.
So there are parties to the ECR. Is that right?
Yes, everyone who owns a lot in the commercial area will be a member of the commercial association.
So right now, the the ECR parties are JW Colonial and the Blake. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. So when JW Colonial sells off a commercial lot, does that ECR pertain to all successors assigned and subsequent successors
Correct.
assigned?
So then
Yes.
it'd be JW, the Blake, and
Okay.
whoever the
It's a
third
restrictive
person is.
covenant that follows the property.
Got you. So, theoretically, we could say that the parties to the ECR are those that are responsible for maintenance of the stormwater management area. Is that right?
Well, it's going to change over time.
Right, but
so it would,
but it'd be covered in there because of the successors assigns transferees language.
and we do that already. I mean, the agreement itself follows successors and assigns. So
But
I
that
think
doesn't
anything else is
create-
unnecessary.
That doesn't create an obligation under the ECR for those parties if we go against them. They're not a party to this, and you're not,
It covers any future owner. And this is going to be a covenant running with the land. On its
Correct.
face, it has to
if
be
we can make
recorded.
this a covenant to
Thank you,
all-
Mr.
all
Suffolk.
those property owners. Forget the ECR for a moment, because that's only an association. It's not even a legal entity. The property's gonna change hands. You're not gonna be dealing with the ECR. You're gonna be dealing with members of the ECR. So we need to get a direct line of recourse against the property owners, and I'm assuming the Blake's out of the picture unless they sign this agreement, of the 11 acres in perpetuity.
Yes, the ECR was recorded prior to the Blake's ownership, so they are subject to the ECR.
They're subject to the ECR, but they're not subject to any recourse 10 years from now if the city were to pursue somebody for the cost to remediate the pond. And that's where I'm trying to go with
They're
this.
still gonna own the property.
I think as a member of the commercial association, they would be responsible.
I agree with Mr. Suffolk.
I think not.
I would look at it like a member of a condo association or a townhome association, kind of, you know.
Except, the way I had originally drafted it was my attempt at saying we could go against the owners, the lot owners covered by all the lot owners, all of them. But I put the HOA in there as an organization, because it's gonna be in perpetuity, I think, well, unless they vote it out. They could. The lot owners could vote out an HOA in the future. So all I'm trying to do here is say, if things go to heck in a handbasket, who does the city look to, and what's the measure of recourse? Now, the measure of recourse is a daily fine of $500 a day if we go out there and pop them every day. And at some point in time, Jacob, correct me, sir,
The measure of damages is the 100% plus the cost to remediate the property.
but you don't do that immediately.
No, you don't have to do it immediately. You can find them first.
Right.
The city can go out there and
Right.
fix
I
the
was gonna get to
property
that.
themselves
I was gonna
and
get to
enforce
that.
it against the commercial parcel owner.
Well, how do we enforce it against the commercial parcel owner? That's the mechanism I'd like, I don't, how do you enforce it against the commercial? The nuisance isn't on their property. They don't own the detention pond.
But the owner of the commercial parcel has agreed to maintain the detention pond, and that obligation flows to the subsequent owners under the ECR.
Correct. I agree with that. Now, again, how do I get them to pay? What's the action against the owner of a commercial parcel that's a member of an
We can
ECR
file suit saying they violated these.
to pay? How do you sue them? They don't own the detention pond.
You put a lien on their property, and if they don't pay it, you ask the sheriff to sell it.
Their property?
Yes.
They're not the offender.
Well, they are.
They
have the
are under
obligation
that
to maintain
ECR.
the
Wait,
detention
I-
pond, and they're not maintaining
I'm gonna
it.
put to you, they're not.
Their property might not be the offender, but they are
Right,
the
you
offender.
can't lien their
But
property.
this says that we can.
Well, but they're not a party to this.
The only person you have to worry about right now would be the Blake. They own every piece of property they have left.
The only thing
So
I'm
if we
worried about
call in
right
and say
now
the
is
Blake's
putting
in-
something in this agreement while the developers own 11 acres. I wanted it to be against the residential and the commercial.
The
The
residential
owner doesn't
owner-
want that. The owner doesn't want that, and I'm fine. Let's make the commercial parcels an actionable party in the future. And I don't see how you're gonna do this. Sir, I'm gonna put to you that that's a stretch, that I'm gonna go against somebody who doesn't own the property. I'm gonna lien that property and sell it. I'm gonna lien that commercial lot and sell it when there's no direct right to do so by contract.
I think I would, because when they acquired the property, it was contingent and subject to those restrictions. And I would think they're liable if it says you can, wear blue jeans on every Friday and you don't do it, that's a violation. It's kind of like a bylaws of a condo association. The association would have the right to go after that owner for violating those bylaws. I mean, somewhat similar to the,
You can sue an HOA, it's a legal organization. The detention pond's not a legal organization.
We're gonna have to agree to disagree, move on to the next one. If not, we're gonna be.
So,
here till
well,
2 o'clock in
my
the
question is, Mr. Buddy, is, do you want to take a recess and see if there's any language you can come up with the developers to satisfy your concerns?
I can do that without much of a reason. Just give me a minute.
I just think. Are y'all fine with the language, Lorraine?
Yes.
Okay, and that's what you need to say. So, Mr. Buddy, I believe the owners are in agreement of the way it's written now. Is that correct, including the language from the attorney about adding the nuisance language?
That is correct.
Sorry, could you repeat that, please?
Yes, on behalf of the owner-developer, we do agree to the language which is being added at paragraph 22.
The amendment that's
Okay.
already been adopted.
So here's-
Correct.
Here's the amendment I'm proposing. At the,
I'm listening.
at the end of the paragraph 22, as amended, add the words, add a sentence, all construction costs and maintenance costs of the stormwater management servitude area shall be borne 100% by JW Colonial Group LLC. And the commercial association in a manner and percentages of responsibility in perpetuity as described in the amended ECR. I think I want to take out as described. think I want to take out the words "in the manner and percentages of responsibilities," because the ECR won't give them 100%. They'll have a deal with the HOA. So I just want to say that,
So how
But
long does
Mr.
this
Buddy,
tie
so
in
what happens when
Colonial's
JW
gone?
Colonial starts selling these lots off?
no, the lots, it's got to flow to the successors. So by recording it,
Every.
Well, you just said
develop-
100% would be borne by JW Colonial.
right, the next sentence is going to cover the successors. The obligations of property owners under the ECR, the obligation of property owners under this, do we refer to this as agreement, or Jason, is this abbreviated as agreement?
The amended development agreement. I'm sorry. The amended development agreement.
Shall be binding upon all current, future owners of any parcel of the property, period. Said amended, two sentences. All construction costs and maintenance costs of the stormwater management servitude area shall be borne 100% by Colonial Group LLC and the commercial association.
In fairness, I'm gonna type it and put it on the screen just so everybody can see it.
Please do.
Before that, Councilman Aspel, I would like to state the position of the developer here. And, you know, at the end of the day, this is an agreement. Agreements require mutual consent. We've negotiated this agreement, and I think the developer representative has had several meetings now. And at this point, we would just respectfully reject that position and that additional language. We don't consent to it, and to have an agreement, both sides have to agree. And conducting a negotiation in public like this, I just don't think it's the way to confect an agreement.
So my comment there is, it's very unusual, I agree. The council needs to consider this question, and if they are concerned enough to want to have a clearer enforcement right, then they can amend this agreement to include it so as not to have a bad provision. That does not mean that the developer is going to agree to it.
Okay.
So
So you're,
it's the council's decision, and I'm sitting here saying, I think we need something clearer, without any ambiguity, a method to collect if there's ever a failure to maintain the pond.
I think it's there.
Well, listen, I appreciate that, and I think we could just vote on it and move
so I
on.
think Mr. Buddy made a motion to amend as read. I'll second the motion to amend.
We're going to go through all the amendments and take them in global?
No, I think we just do
We're gonna
these
take this one right now.
one by one, I think.
I think that would be efficient. Do we have to open it up to the public?
We should open it up to.
Yeah. Anyone coming forth want to speak on this amendment? Public hearing is now open. All right, no one coming forth, public hearing is now closed. All right, we'll go back to council discussion.
I think we had plenty of discussion on this one.
I would just like to say one thing. I agree with Mr. Suffering. With all due respect, Mr. Buddy, I mean, I think these amendments should have definitely been brought up to the developer prior to a meeting at this point right now. I mean, they didn't even see this till literally,
Councilman Asbill, I met with the developers.
Wheeler.
I'm sorry, Councilman Wheeler. I met with the developers.
okay? And you gave them these?
No, we talked about changes. We were talking about changes in my proposed amendment. We got through some of them. We may have discussed, there were many we discussed that they didn't agree to. The point is that the residents and the council has the obligation to listen, I think moral obligation to listen and make a decision. I'm not offended if you disagree, but I haven't discussed these with the public
Okay.
or to that point with the council members. we didn't get, and I didn't finish, and there's been a fast track on this, Councilman Wheeler, I'm not going to criticize it, but this has been a real fast track, because I didn't see the proposed amendment until, what was it, a week ago? Or I'm not sure when it was. It wasn't that long ago. So it's been rather fast track on this whole thing.
I'm gonna take issue with the fast track issue. We've been trying to work on this for 2 years now. This version
When
for,
did we see
for 5 months.
your amended ordinance?
Saw it last week.
Right.
And
So
we had a
that's the
meet, and we
fast
had a,
track.
and we
So-
had a meeting about
Then
it.
we saw yours 4 days later.
Because that's how long
Right.
it took me to put it together.
And now we're here again, and we're
let's-
working on
let's
another
move.
one.
No, we're working on,
All right, move for the
working
vote.
on a possible merger between mine and Councilman
See if there's
Asbill.
any other issues. and
No, I
then
think
we'll
we
come
can
back.
vote on this one now.
Let's move for the vote.
I think we vote on it and get it behind us.
We got a motion,
Yeah,
second, we
close
did.
public hearing already.
I second the motion.
I move for the vote.
Okay.
You
All in
the
favor?
motion.
Sorry, I'll make,
Nay.
Nay.
All
yay.
All right, 3 nays, 1 yay, 1 absent on that amendment.
So that's staying the same.
Yes.
Okay.
Line 139. I'd like to amend the amended ordinance, the amended agreement, line 139. Add the words, open quote, "at no cost to the city," close quote, after the words, "the owner shall." So it would read, I'll repeat it, it would read, "the owner shall," you would insert, comma, "at no cost to the city," comma, and then it would pick up.
Second.
Public hearing.
You have an open for public hearing? I wasn't calling for the vote yet. I wasn't gonna let him do it.
Sorry.
I didn't want to come speak on this amendment that Councilman Asbill just typed up.
Actually, that's fine. I'm going to
I
type
typed it.
yes.
Amendment by Councilman Buddy. All right, no one come to speak forth, we'll not close public hearing. We'll go to council discussion.
Mr. Suffern, that's consistent with language that we've inserted at other spots where there's obligations on the owner. It's just points of clarity that
Okay, what?
it shall be at no cost to the city. And if we want to,
Wait.
Mr. McCarron, if you
I
can
would
hear.
prefer to wait rather than
Yeah.
spend my client's money, but I
Yeah.
do think that is consistent. The city is not paying for
Mr.
that.
McCarron, if you can hear us out in the hallway.
It's just added some language.
Road, which I think is okay. Just the access road, we have to pay for it. Which is understood. No objection.
Call for the vote.
All right. All in favor to amendment on line 12, line 134 to add at no cost to the city?
139.
Yay.
139, all in favor?
Yay.
Yay.
4 yeas, 1 absent, 0 nays.
Line 150. Well, it may have moved.
It's paragraph 13.
It's like 146 now. Just a discussion before I read the proposed amendment. There's no timeline for construction of the fence on Glenwood. I proposed 48 months in meetings with the owner, and the owner rejected it. I want the council to just be aware. I'm sorry, thank you.
Can y'all hear him?
There's
The camera won't.
There's no timeline on construction of the fence on Colonial. I proposed, and part of the logic was, that could all get moved if Pump to the River goes. We don't want to interfere with that. We don't want a fence built and torn down. But I proposed that if Pump to the River's not a go, we build the fence within 48 months. So you got a consistent fence, which is, so the verbiage would be, add the following to the end of paragraph 13. The uniform fence on the Glenwood sideline shall be constructed within 48 months of date of execution of this agreement, period, close quote.
So, Mr. Buddy, you just said that it may interfere with, it could potentially interfere with pump to the river,
There's a
correct?
provision in here, I believe, Councilman Asbill can confirm, that says the fence doesn't have to be built until pump to the river's decided. I pulled 4 years out the air. I know it's going to take a long time, and hopefully we get there and pump to the river happens. But I wanted to put a timeline in here. And am I correct, Councilman Asbill, as drafted, if the fence doesn't have to be built, if it's going to be reconfigured and reconsidered, if pump to the river is a go?
That's right. It says it may be may be delayed as reasonably necessary to accommodate the project or
Right.
other drainage.
So if pump to the river is a go, and I can put except as provided in that clause, I'm happy to do that. My intention is not to do anything to interfere with pump to the river, just put a time that says this is going to happen.
So-
48 months from,
Date of execution of this agreement.
So
what if it takes longer than
So I'll say that our ordinances already provide for a timeline for that fence to be built, that uniform fence to be built, and it's before final approval, after conditional approval, before final approval.
For an individual lot, you believe?
That fence has to be approved before final approval of the plat plan. So they cannot get final approval of the plat plan until that fence is built, because it's one of the improvements for the property.
And just clarify for me,
oh, I'm sorry.
clarify. That final approval would be for a lot on that Glenwood side?
No, it's for the plat plan,
The plat plan?
for the subdivision filing plat plan.
So let's say the subdivision plat was for one lot on Colonial, because we're doing small quantities. Let's say it's 4. When those 4 lots that abut the Glenwood sideline of the property, when they get final, the fence has to be constructed already.
Correct.
Okay. I'll withdraw this.
Thank you. Guess we
And
should-
here, we talked about it a little earlier.
Yeah, we talked about this already.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what the conclusion was. We talked about it.
Yeah, so
Well,
let
you removed setback, and we put a new.
And maybe-
residential.
Did Mr. Villavasso leave us? Because he could probably help. Oh, there you are, sir. I-
But we discussed this, and we had already changed, we took the setback word out, if I'm not mistaken.
But,
Yeah.
but it's still not clear in my mind. So maybe we can you scroll to 152? Oh, you're already there. Will you scroll up a
it's
little bit?
paragraph 14. The line numbers are different, but it's paragraph 14, right here.
Mr. Villavasso, my confusion is that, as I understand this, there's a 35-foot buffer on property that will never be lots, that may exist already. It's a servitude, I believe.
It's not.
So the question I want to make sure is clear here, that 35 feet is not on the lots themselves that adjoin Glenwood.
I would agree with you. That 35-foot buffer is outside the lot line of those lots in question.
Okay.
Inside the lot line of those lots in question, those lots will have to meet whatever the rear yard requirements are for those lots.
So if we added the words on line 143, established, after the word established, the last word in that line, outside the lot line of the Glenwood Street lots, of the lots on the Glenwood Street side, something like that. This just isn't as clear as I think it should be.
Well, it's your choice. They're both complicated wordings to something that's crystal clear to me.
You think this is crystal clear?
To
No,
me
no,
it is.
to you it is, so
The
that.
35-foot buffer is not on the private property. On the private property, the lots are subject to the zoning ordinance of the city of Harahan. The zoning ordinance of the city of Harahan has dimensions for rear, front, and side yards. This agreement does not change those requirements in the zoning ordinance.
I thought the agreement superseded whatever the ordinances were.
Right, but this
That goes without saying. Yeah.
This requirement doesn't change.
It doesn't say in here, so that would stay.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, and I'm good with it as written. Lot 160. 160,
It's 160 on your paragraph 15.
it's on paragraph 15 in the last line, paragraph 15. Paragraph 15, Jason?
Your numbers are off.
There you go. Well, okay, I'm sorry, your numbers are off. It's the paragraph that reads, owner in the city acknowledge.
We got it.
Okay.
Mine wants,
Oh, it's still 15.
147 on this.
And I had a question about the word setbacks in the last sentence. Well, it's 34. What? 5 to 9. So, we don't have any. Could we say they're not subject to the setbacks and ingress and egress restrictions in the 40-acre parcel? Or along Colonial Club Drive in the 40-acre parcel? What is the 40-acre parcel referred to as? Restricted residential development, open parent, 40 acres, closed parent. So I propose we amend paragraph 15 by adding, after the words at the end of the paragraph, Colonial Club Drive, after the words Colonial Club Drive, in the restricted residential development, open parent, 40 acres, closed parent. I think that's the intent. So I propose to amend paragraph 15 by adding, I'm sorry, as Councilman Asbill has amended it on the screen. Open it up to the public here.
All right, well, then now open for public hearing, discuss on the amendment to was paragraph 15, line item 150.
Public hearing, if the owner's got comment as well, please come on up if the owner's got comment.
All right, I'm going to now close public hearing because the owner is sleeping.
And if you guys need to step out to discuss too, please feel free.
I'm sorry, Councilman Asbill, I didn't hear
No, I
you.
mean, I think.
I was saying if they need to step out to discuss, we'll
Yeah.
give them time to do that. Mr. McCarron, that camera might pick you up.
Yeah, I know.
All right.
Brain stuff process.
Councilman Asbill, while they're discussing that, on line 157, paragraph 15, hold on, wait. Where because of the scratch out, I'm having a hard time reading. It's regarding lots 9 to dash, I'm assuming that reads 9 to 13, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
You can't see the deletion.
Yeah, that's what threw me, and I'm seeing, I figured it out now. So that's, so I'm not gonna, so you can line out my number 8, passing on it, it's clarified.
For the proposed changes at paragraph 15, our position is that we're going to reject that. Quite honestly, we haven't had enough time to fully process it. And then also now we have the change permitting lots along Colonial Club Drive. So we just reject it.
Roger. So in the spirit of trying to come to an agreement, because that's what this whole process for me has been about, is coming to an agreement.
Can we
Yeah.
delete the paragraph?
I mean, I think that would take even more consideration from the developer about deleting a whole paragraph. And
Yeah, I guess let me say this, I'll probably let Suffren say it, but, my thought on that, like, what you have right there, I may be okay with. My instinct sitting here is that it says the same thing. And I'm just not into changing words for words. And you might be right, it might say something different, but if it does, I can't process it right now. And so I could tell you, we'll go through this whole thing, and I don't see me really agreeing to anything tonight, because I put to Mr. Buddy, we met 3 months ago the first time on this. And I think you've learned something significantly in the past week, I'd say.
Did you say what, sir? I'm sorry.
I'd say the first time we ever came with the original ADA at Oak Oven, we took a meet and went over it, and that was a first. So many, many months ago, it was we had, you had input or had the opportunity to, at the time, Mr. Asbill was, sort of heading it up. And then we met again, I don't know what it was, 2 weeks or so ago for 5 hours or so. And I do think those, at each of those junctures, I think we've added some things and made some changes and little corrections. But I'd be hesitant right now to look at these in the moment and agree to something, but that's not to say I don't find it valuable to sit here and think through it, and I'll take some notes, but I just want y'all to hear that. Like, y'all can continue to ask me, but I can only say no so many times. And it's not even specifically that I am rejecting it. I'm just, it's the first time I'm looking at it in a really short time. And look, we've probably looked at the spirit of all of these things many, many times, so.
Edward Suffern again. I would just like to add to supplement Mr. McKieran's advice. You know, I think many, many, many of Mr. Buddy's comments have already been incorporated in the agreement. And since negotiations are opened up again, you know, does the developer have an opportunity to come up with another wish list of items he requires at this point? I just think we're heading the wrong direction through this.
Thank you. Move to close the public hearing.
All right, public hearing is now closed. All right.
So I want to propose the amendment, and
Can you explain to me, council discussion?
Yep, council discussion.
Can you explain to me what that wordage doing to this paragraph?
because I don't understand what setbacks and what we're saying that the property located outside the 40-acre parcel is not subject to setbacks and egress restrictions along Colonial Club Drive. Well, of course these parcels are subject to setbacks. I don't think the intent was to sneak something in there, but I don't know what we're doing by saying that. And I think the intent was to say they're not controlled by what goes on in the 40-acre parcel. Well, now that we've changed the 40-acre parcel to allow development, we could delete the whole paragraph. And I respect the developer's position on this. This is an odd way to do this, but the council hasn't heard these comments. A representative of the city met with the developer and negotiated an agreement, and it was a wonderful kickstart. And the developer has made many of these changes that we discussed tonight earlier were changes in my proposed amendment, my proposed ordinance 2021-12, which I appreciate. But there are things the council hasn't been privy to. You haven't been a party to the direct negotiations. I'm just going to point them out. If it's significant, you can vote to include it, and then hopefully the developer will agree to it. If you think it's not significant, you've heard what I have to say, you've been informed, let's vote and move on. This isn't personal, this is.
I'm just gonna make one comment.
Yes, sir.
Because the way you just explained that, and I know majority of the people in here understand, you basically just said, one representative of the city met with these developers and came up with this. I believe every one of us met with these developers numerous times.
I didn't come up with this document, I don't think you did. I think there have been meetings.
But I'm just saying, the way that came off was.
I stand corrected. I think every member up here, including the mayor, every councilman and the mayor,
times.
have talked with the council, with the developers. I know I've had, in the last 3 or 4 months, I've probably met maybe 3 times. Although one was at 40,000 feet last week. It was a more detailed discussion. We didn't get through everything I wanted to discuss. All right.
Was there a second on that amendment? I guess there was, since we opened it up to everything.
You want to vote on the amendment?
So I gotta say, I think Mr. Buddy's correct on this amendment. By saying that they're not subject to setbacks along Colonial Club Drive, it has the inverse written in number 11, where it says there are setbacks within the 40-acre parcel along Colonial Club Drive. So I think those 2 paragraphs would be contradicting if we left it as is. And as Mr. McKieran stated, I don't know that it changes anything if we put in the 40-acre parcel.
Setbacks out of the waiver. You can do that. Because you have it up there saying it's subject to, you have it down here saying it's not subject to setbacks. So I think
So-
that's what he was saying. He was saying, please delete the word setback. That they are subject to setbacks and ingress and egress restrictions along Colonial. That's what you got there.
So
So,
Yeah, so I'm gonna,
in rethinking it, I'm going back to my original comment, my number 7.
Please
Please
amend.
delete the word setback.
yeah, please amend your,
So I
Amendment
amend
and
my
I'll-
amended, amendment to the amended document to read, let's see
we're
here,
just gonna put not subject to,
it's all one sentence, right?
not subject to ingress, egress restrictions.
So the amendment would read, delete the word, open quote, setbacks, close quote, no. Delete the word setbacks
And.
and
And
in paragraph 15.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Councilman Buddy to delete setbacks and on paragraph 15. We have a second by Councilman Asbell. All in favor?
Public hearing, public hearing.
We're going to open the public hearing. Anyone come to speak?
Quick, guys. Tommy Hughes, 15 Colonial. I just want to say we're doing great. I feel like we're really close to the finish line. And so I appreciate what Mr. Buddy's doing. I know we're all tired, but if we could just power through, it'd be great.
Power through this, bro. We are powering through
Thank you.
this. I guarantee you, because I don't know if I'm never talking about Colonial again.
That's the point.
Okay, Council. Our public hearing is now closed. All right, all in favor?
Yeah,
Council discussion on it? You go.
Yeah, they really, I want to, that's how we discussed it. I closed public hearing, yes, I did. I closed the public hearing. Public hearing is now closed. Council discussion?
No further discussion.
Exactly. All in favor?
Yay.
All right, 4 yeas, 0 nays. Got it. Let's leave mayor terminology. Got it.
good.
Good.
It's good.
We handled number 8. Number 9, changed 22 to 20 lots on the allowance for.
yeah. I'm not sure how 22 came up. When I met with the owners, I thought we were talking about the lots.
Yeah, so I'll tell you, between the discussion, him and I, he came up, he remembered 22 from your discussion. So that's where that 22 came from. He remembered 22 from discussion, so maybe there was miscommunication on your guys' side. But the amendment is to amend it to this is what Mr. Buddy has proposed on, I'm not putting words in his mouth, that's what he's proposed on the sheet.
Mr. Buddy, do you have a problem leaving
Oh,
it at 22?
Well, you know, I'm opposed to this in principle, these lots going into the existing sewage collection system and not going through lift station 6.
Okay.
So I get less opposed the smaller number of lots. But I think I see where, counting it on this map that's not official, but very helpful, I think I see where the 22 comes from, and I'm going to withdraw this proposal.
Great.
Line 184, which is paragraph 18.
Yeah, tell Craig, come on back. Tell Craig, we're still in session, come on back.
So what we didn't include here was what the mayor commented on earlier, that the owners would perform and pay for all video and other inspection necessary for both parties and professionals to review. So I propose adding a sentence at the end of the paragraph, at the end of paragraph 18, saying owners shall perform, and pay for all video and other inspections necessary for both parties, capital P parties, professionals.
Vinnie Mosca, you laugh, but Vinnie Mosca used to do that, because the budget hearings back in the day would go so long, we would be here, like from 5 to midnight and we'd split them in half, and they'd still go 5 to midnight. And we'd have to order pizza. Steve, remembers that? Yeah.
So I've got to propose to Babbitt.
But if you don't mind, let me, I'm rewording it a little bit.
Okay. Oh, you're typing, I'm sorry. I can't hear the clicking.
I didn't want to limit it to video inspection, it should
Right.
be all costs.
All right. I'm good with that.
Okay, we're gonna open for public hearing, proposed amendment on line item 174, owner shall perform all and pay for all costs necessary to inspection to evaluate the existing facilities.
Existing sewer
All right, Councilman, all right, Mr. McCarron.
So again, since we're in this spot where we're just talking and thinking at the same time, in principle, not only, I'm fine with it, and in principle, I think I have to, actually, I think the way this thing would work, I have to. I am thinking through, though, that I would almost want to know what those were, what the requirements were prior to agreeing to do it. So for instance, I would agree. I'd say, yeah, no, look, we need to make sure this back line is right to go to catch basin, sewer, manhole, such and such. However, I don't know where the
I don't know how to
charging
word it,
stops.
but
I want to be able to say yes, and then we get approval, and then not go, oh, but we also want you to video this and video this. I don't know where it ends. Versus the current is, that what we currently have is, I would argue, clean. Not even sure I made a point there, but that's my, I don't have a problem in theory with, of course, yeah, the expense should be on me to make sure. I want to use a line.
So,
Yeah, but at the
Can-
same
if I can add-
How far do you go?
Well, that's what I mean by I
Alright.
want to know up front.
right, so if
what-
I can add a comment, what you don't see in here, from Mr. Buddy's, just in full, full disclosure, is that, for both parties' professionals, because I think you're already paying the fees and costs for our professionals in your filings. I mean, that's in your filing fees for plan review fees and stuff like that. So you're paying for the cost of the labor on the actual inspection, and your professionals, and then, our professionals are covered by your filing fees. That's all I'm adding to that. It's just, you're right. I don't know. I guess, what else could there be if you line all the pipe, right, of your existing sewer facilities? You're saying how far down the line do you have to go? Is that your question?
Yeah, and I'm saying, where does sewer facilities end? I mean, in theory, that could be your plant.
Mayor, you had some thoughts on this? Do you want to give us some guidance?
But what I will say is, I think I already have to do it.
I think you're right.
I
We already have to do it once we set up for inspection, before we approve
Yeah, I
final.
mean, you got to show it in your conditional,
So
right?
that's my point, is I'm just hesitant to add language that I think I'm already doing, or I'd already be obligated to do. If I don't prove to you that y'all's that it's okay back there. You know, obviously, the blanket statement is, guys, there used to be, you know, a 300-member club back there. They would throw parties for 300 people. I think it's going to be okay. That's my common sense answer. However, that doesn't work.
Yeah, because keywords used to be.
So what you got to say is that, of course, is the reason to asking to go through the line. And I'm required, when I do that, to go through preliminary, conditional, and final.
Yeah, so look, I think the process worked the first time, right? He didn't show us to our satisfaction that that it was feasible, and the mayor vetoed it. You got 2 nay votes, and the mayor vetoed it from there.
And this is another technical question that I don't know the answer to.
Okay.
When a homeowner ties into the city sewer services, they don't inspect the line downstream at all. They just tie into the city sewer services. This is not a normal situation.
Yeah, you're right.
So, and I'm not trying to impose you going all the way to the plant, and you have a very good question. Where do you stop? Mayor, you had some thoughts on this. This was something I put in after speaking with the mayor.
Is it to the next lift station? I mean, I don't know how that works.
Sir?
I'm wondering
It would
if
be
it's
to the closest lift
to the
station, but I
closest
don't
lift
know.
station? Is that where
I'm
it
thinking
stops?
offhand what lift station, I don't know what lift station that's.
Well, so we just put to the nearest lift station, to the nearest direct lift station.
Yeah, which would be to, on Donnelly. That's where you would go. You would go to
You would
Donnelly.
film to the nearest lift station, the next lift station.
There you go.
Yeah, maybe what you just said, something owner pre-approved cost.
Yeah.
Yes, if we could, on behalf of the owner, insert the word pre-approved costs after the word all,
What lift stations on Donnelly?
which would then give the owner right to bid it out.
We're not gonna be doing it. You're not gonna be paying us. The owner's gonna pay a video inspection company to go do the work. Complete control. So I don't know why pre-approval is appropriate.
Just to negate any blank check that they might be,
The, it says they may tie in there. So the whole option to tie in it's an option. To exercise the option, you just got to show the city that it can accept the sewerage. If you get an estimate and the cost is too high, there's no obligation to exercise the option to put the sewerage for those 22 lots into the existing Harahan sewer
It's lift
system.
station 3. That's it? You said that's exactly what you know, lift station 3. So believe it or not, that's not very far.
Where is it on Donald and Tim?
Right in the middle of Donald and McHugh, you know that big circle? That
So it's
circle?
half a mile.
It would still be going, just so you understand, it would still be most likely going to the man that club dumps it to, which I'm sleeping on the right now. But nevertheless, the point is, yeah, I still want you to.
It goes that way, then goes to 6.
I mean, the truth is you're gonna wanna know that, it goes to 3. So whether you put it in here or not, you're still gonna incur that cost, because if it don't go to 3, it ain't moving. You can go to every manhole along the way, but if it don't hit 3, you ain't moving it.
Just on the discussion point of the word pre-approved, that gives me concern as far as who's pre-approving those costs and what the limits that are set there. I don't know that it helps clear up anything.
And I still go through this, and I still think that y'all's process, this would naturally occur in y'all's
It's an
current
option.
process.
They spend the money, they get a quote, spend the money.
Preliminary,
I'm with you.
conditional, and final. I
mean,
have to do this.
You know my stance on this, and we can leave it out. But if I'm telling you, if I get uncomfortable in the slightest way,
Then you're
I'm
gonna
gonna
deny
shoot it
it.
down.
You're not
Then
gonna be
you're
able to.
deny it. And listen, you're gonna
Oh, yeah.
deny it. You're gonna
It's
deny
gotta come
it.
to me before, for approval.
It's
It's
implicit within the conditional approval, right?
Oh, but that's if it gets signed next week. I'm sorry.
No, I'm
No,
not talking about
because
this
it's the
ordinance.
engineers
No, but when they
dictate
come
that.
through with a final approval,
You-
it's still gotta be passed.
You're
by
not gonna have a
council.
basis to do it. I'm just saying,
Then
I don't believe you have a basis
veto
to
the
do it.
first one then.
We let you gave the Blake approval with
I
the
didn't give
line
it-
that we felt
Well, I
was,
did not give the Blake approval.
you didn't veto it.
I didn't have the Blake, that was done before I got here.
The line down Colonial
Done
to
before I got here.
Riverside.
And the problem is. with
I mean, there
naming
wasn't,
a
no work
lift
wasn't
station
done,
right
but it was all
now,
approved
we
and
might
permitted
determine
before I
that's
got
not
here.
the right lift station.
All right.
Believe me, I wanted to stop it.
But if
We
you-
did stop it, as a matter of
just-
fact, like 3
I hate
times.
getting
You
myself
did.
in
Alright.
holes
Well-
for all pre-approved costs.
that don't make sense.
What is,
Guys, I think I do, I'm kind of standing on the head of, I really think that, I agree, I do have to do this, but I already have to do this. It's within the preliminary, conditional, and final world. And the reason that, when Mr. Buddy said that a minute ago about this is different than a home, I agree, but then I started thinking about it further, this is certainly more than 6 homes, which pushes me into the major, whatever you call it, major re-subdivision, what you call it, Steve, but the major re-subdivision, which pushes me down the path of preliminary, conditional, and final. And yeah, it's up to y'all's city engineer, or whoever the city engineer, the mayor at the time, if right now it's Myers, whoever it is, and he's gonna say, just to Tim's point, to the mayor's point, the mayor's gonna dictate what, to his level of satisfaction that it be done, and that's just how it is, though. I mean, I have to do that naturally.
I can agree with that.
In other words, I agree, but I don't think I accept the words.
I just add one comment, Steve Villavesto. I think you have to, the developer has to do it legally. I don't think it's a natural obligation. I think it's embedded in your code already. Again, the sentence, I don't think adds anything to what's already in your regulations. It's a development agreement. It's okay, but the developer's got to do it anyway.
All right, you want to close public hearing? All right, so we're gonna now make, we're gonna close public hearing. All right, so we'll go into council discussion.
I agree. I don't think pre-approved makes sense in here. This is an option. If the owner gets a quote and it's too much money, he doesn't exercise the option. This is all about the owner may. So,
But I can understand the developer. When you say all could be $1, all could be $10 million.
but he's in complete control.
But if it's already self-serving and what we already have, I just,
Yep. I don't understand how we
you can
could,
put the language in.
I don't understand how we could enforce that, but I'm not going to argue with Mr. Villavesto. He's certainly a subject matter expert on, and I'm not.
So you can.
But he's not representing the city.
Okay, well, this is your amendment. Are you content with
Okay.
the red line?
I propose that we amend paragraph 18
Okay,
by adding the sentence, it's on the board if you turn, on your computer, mine died. Owner shall
died.
perform and pay for all, who unplugged me? Owner shall perform and pay for all costs necessary to evaluate the feasibility of the existing sewer facilities up to the nearest lift station.
second?
Period.
Okay, so we got a motion on the floor by Councilman Buddy.
Yeah, I did, I probably did something.
All right.
You hate.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor by Councilman Buddy to amend line 174 to add owner shall perform and pay all costs necessary to evaluate the facility of the existing sewer facilities up until the nearest lift station, which will be 3. All in favor?
Yay.
All opposed?
Nay.
Oh, Lord.
sorry.
You gotta break the tie.
Break the tie, man.
Dun, 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 dun.
Do I vote on
Yes.
You would vote?
it? I've never been this, I've never even seen this before, y'all.
Yeah.
I've been served under 3 mayors. I'm gonna agree with Mr. Villabasso on this one, and I'll break the tie going nay. I think we have the rights to do it, and I have the right to enforce it. And Mr. Buchanan knows that I mean business when it comes to this part of this agreement.
All right, move on.
So it's 3 nays?
That's
Well,
right.
it's
Three
2-2,
nays.
and then the mayor's vote, he voted nay.
Okay. One absent.
One absent, yeah.
Oh, crap. So we can.
So you're gonna remove that?
Yeah, you're gonna take it out of your
Yeah,
draft,
take
sir?
it out.
Great.
Right.
Moving right along. Now, when I drafted this afternoon, I wanted to add, in line 193, I wanted to add back in 17.2168 acres. After the changes we made earlier, I'm reconsidering the necessity of that. And my initial reaction is it's not necessary.
Thank
I think we've fixed the definitional side sufficiently enough.
I agree.
So I'm gonna pass on my proposed amendment number 11. Okay. I'm going to pass on my proposed amendment number 12. Now, let me look at 207. Make sure
What was the time?
Yeah, we discussed this at length, number 13. And I would not like to revisit it if possible.
So what was the earlier result of that? The,
That's, we added that, wait, is that when we did that? No, that's not what we did.
that was the perpetuity amendment, which I'm thinking did not pass.
That was the number 3 amendment.
We're back on it.
That's right.
All right. So since that failed, I pass on my number 13.
Okay.
And I believe based upon earlier changes that we made, I'll pass on number 14. And I think I'll pass on number, well, hold on. Now, I want to look at line 223. So I was hoping to be able to defer comment on this until I could speak to the city's engineer.
So, Mr. Buddy, this is also the paragraph that we took that recess initially and the
Right.
engineer spoke,
Yeah, a lot of,
and we added that language. I don't know if that helps clarify.
it does, but
Okay.
the,
Also, in that same paragraph, in our earlier meeting today, didn't the engineer provide us with that December 10th, 2020 date?
Yes, it's there.
yes, it's included in what I'm looking at
Okay.
here. All right, I'm gonna pass on that proposed, my item number 15.
16 we handled in the earlier amendment.
It was already changed? Thank you. Okay, now back to 233, jumped around a little bit on you. That's line 26.
It's actually going to be paragraph 25,
Yeah.
I think. That's what we're talking about, the EIA.
Yeah, as discussion, line 225, existing 225, after the words DIA, add the words "and agreed or concurred by city's engineer."
So whenever they, and just as discussion, whenever they submit their commissional plot plan, they'll submit an updated DIA, and when it goes to planning and zoning, the professionals will make a recommendation on that plat plan.
Well, this is a little different, though, isn't it? This is amending the, unless I'm confused,
Oh, I
this
see. Okay, yeah,
paragraph
yeah.
is amending
I see.
the capacity of the detention pond. So all I would ask there is that, as we've done before, is allowed by the updated DIA and approved or concurred by the city's engineer.
He just took a snap.
My wife said, "Where you at?"
If she comes in here, this is gonna be the funniest shit ever.
Didn't he send you?
So all this does is it provide our engineer to concur with the developer's engineer. So 223.
No.
I think that's
So
reasonable.
it would read,
It's,
proposed amendment would read
So,
in the second sentence,
Yeah, Mr. Buddy, he kind of,
oh, yeah, I was just gonna,
yeah, just, I mean, unless you wanted to add something. I know he was kind of.
no, that's what I want to add. I was just gonna say it in the second sentence, which begins with "in consideration." I didn't want to use a line reference because the lines are liable to change.
Yeah.
yes.
Are you ready to open for public hearing? Okay, we proposed amendment, line item 223, to add city and city's engineer concurs.
Second.
Anyone, second by Councilman Asbill. Public hearing is now open. Anyone come to speak forth? No one come to speak forth. Public hearing is now closed.
Wait. They read it.
I think that's on us. That ain't even on you. Yeah, that's on me. That ain't even on them. That's on me. So they're good. I approved it, because that one's on me.
I think it's
I mean, just let people
Yeah.
read it. I mean, that's pretty fast. Okay, all right, let's take a call to them.
Okay, then we got council discussion.
Move for the vote.
Move for the vote.
Okay, so we have a motion by Councilman Wheeler, second by Councilman Asbill. All in favor?
Yay.
Yeah.
Yay. 4 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent.
I think we handled 18.
Yeah, I think we may have.
That was a long discussion as well.
Yes, 18 is resolved. So that goes down to, except for D, which reads, also said, reviews by the city engineers on the city's behalf shall be at the owner's expense. So, Councilman Asbill, you mentioned earlier that the owner is paying this in their application fees. I am not familiar with the details paid for engineering review, how that's charged, and is it adequate to cover review of, say, a stormwater
Right.
detention? I mean, this is complex
So
stuff.
I'll ask the developer on your last application for that 34 lots. So you remember what the filing fees were on that? If I recall, I think they were upwards of $20,000.
Yeah, they were definitely upwards of 20. I don't
That's
know
it?
the number exactly,
Do you, re-
but that was in the range.
That's it?
do you recall, sir, how the
Breakout.
review fees were charged?
Don't sound like enough to me.
I think lots and acreage.
Yeah.
So what we're talking here, I mean, lots and acreage would be a good bit if we were approving 34 lots. If we're approving 4, it's the same amount of work by the engineers, because they're going to review the same amended or the same update, if I can use that term, of the traffic study and the drainage study. But I just want to make sure we don't suffer, because we're doing this at a rate. We may have many of these reviews.
Sure.
And I'm not, that's not a critical statement, it's a fact. The developer is going to decide which lots to apply for and the quantity. I just want to make sure the city doesn't incur more expenses on this, because to my knowledge, Harahan's never reviewed in an application a drainage study or a traffic impact study. It's not a normal situation.
Well, I mean, the city has reviewed the drainage impact studies for sure for this property.
I'm sorry,
We
other
listed
than
it-
this, other
Oh,
than
okay.
Colonial. And so I'm not highly confident it's covered adequately in our application fees.
Right. Yeah, I'm not, look, I'm not saying that I'm confident that it's covered either, but unless we're ready to change the whole fee schedule here tonight and attack that, I don't think,
I'd say this, let me just, put this public hearing.
it's
I'd have
not,
a
but go
little
ahead.
bit of a problem. Respectfully, to y'all's point earlier, you know, I think I had approximately, I just looked it up, $13,000 worth of fees to pay on the 13 lots, which,
On the 5 lots,
sir,
on the 5 lots.
on the 13 that would
Oh,
then,
13 back.
Previously?
previously, the
V2 lots.
Levy lots?
vetoed lots. And I'm sure it never got to the phase that it was even studied, and it was vetoed, and I lost my 13,000. I'd have a little trouble, that plus the $500,000 up front, plus the 250, at some point, I gotta get some goodwill here, and I'm not in the business of, trying to make y'all run around to do a ton of, inspections.
Danny, I'm not sure what the process was on the 13 lots, but
No, this is a pizza order. I think it's a Domino's.
more importantly, pizza. The question I'm going to ask Danny when he comes back in is, what did you order?
I hope he ordered enough.
The question I'm going to ask him, well, I can wait. No reason to say it now.
Move for a 5-minute recess.
Second.
All in favor?
Yay.
We are back in session 10:24. All right, Mr. Tom, please go ahead with your question.
The question is, to Danny's point that you paid $13,000 for something that got vetoed, I'm not sure if the city and developer followed the review process then. So,
We never got to conditional. It was vetoed before it even got to conditional.
that was,
Vetoed on preliminary.
okay, so there's not correct, there's no plan to review there.
That was
Yep,
unfortunate.
yep, I hear you. Okay, thank you for that.
So is there an amendment that was offered
Um,
for my purposes?
So as a council discussion, I wanted to make the point, discuss it. I'm prepared to withdraw this proposal if nobody else thinks it's significant or important. My point here is for the council members to consider things and to conclude. To run through it real quick, I can make the proposal, we can vote on it. I just want to make sure that we don't get on the, out of pocket on these review costs, because they're going to be, it's a frequency we cannot control.
Yeah, and so, since we're having council discussion on it, other than coming up with a guaranteed fee schedule and just piling on the cost here, and like I think, like Mr. McCarron said, I think there is some goodwill that needs to be built in. I can tell you that if you're looking for a poll before you offer the amendment, I'm not willing to vote for that amendment, because I do think they pay substantial filing fees. Whether it covers it all, I don't know. If it doesn't cover it all, then that's another topic for another day that we need to readjust our filing fees schedule. That's my discussion.
I agree, very good question, though.
There is a provision in this document that says, restricts, and I don't know how broadly, I'd have to go back and look, restricts what we can do after the fact, or as pertains to this property, once this is signed.
Right, that's specific to impact fees.
Well, is it, or is it? I had a question about that when we saw it. We haven't gotten there yet. I don't think. So.
I did address that in your, oh, look, and there's a grammatical error. I'm going to fix that as an administrative change.
Yep, I agree.
And so it says only impact fees in effect at the time are valid impact fees.
Okay.
So filing fees,
I'm
we can
gonna
adjust.
pass on this
Thank you.
because if the council chooses, we can readdress it. All right, the next item, the owner has stated they don't want to do it. Item 19. I want to discuss it briefly. The city's engineer suggested that we add a clause regarding landscaping, and it would read, a landscape plan for the stormwater management area shall be prepared by a licensed landscape architect and submitted to the city by the owner for the written approval of the city and the city's engineer. I didn't have a chance to talk to Ann Terrio about this. That's her recommendation. The owners indicated that they weren't willing to do it. I don't know the significance of it.
And I'll tell you, we had a meeting with the attorneys and Ann this afternoon, and she was there for 2 hours, and she got a copy of the most updated, and she didn't mention, that wasn't a topic for her. So whether she forgot or it's no longer a concern, I don't know. A landscape plan for the storm shall be prepared by a licensed. We want to make an amendment and open it up for public discussion. I think there is a maintenance contract for that stormwater detention that the owners already put into effect. So requiring may just be duplicative.
What was the topics that Ann discussed? I'm just curious. At what level was she at?
There were some substantive things that she had suggested and we had made changes on. In fact, one that we didn't include, but I don't know if, because I wasn't ready to negotiate on that point, but I think Danny might have wanted to bring it up at some point regarding the perpetuity of the sewer, just so he can be heard on that. So there were some pretty substantive topics that she had brought up, and some of them were included in this, and I think all of her substantive but for the sewer lift station in perpetuity were included. And she didn't have an opinion one way or the other. She was just recommending language on that.
The maintenance of the lift station on the
That's
owner?
correct.
I'm not sure how that resolved. What,
It is as it was in the original document that I submitted. So they
Then we-
maintain it in perpetuity.
we probably, yeah. I'm sorry, they maintain it in
They
perpetuity?
maintain it and own it in perpetuity.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna pass on it. Now, here's where it gets really difficult and slow. Because that got us to,
Paragraph 29.
right,
Or if you see it.
Jason, just, because I don't know if I've passed the public comment part on that lift station thing, but.
It's actually the very next paragraph. So if you want to address it, we can.
Yeah. He has. What I wanted to do was at the end, Jay, can you go to
It's-
where you're at?
It's there. Yep.
Where are we?
So, at the end of 29 was to add a line, something like, until such time that the city shall consider homeowners request an engineering-based solution to a potential transfer of the lift station to the city ownership and maintenance on a reasonable good faith basis.
You have that in writing? Is it? Can I?
And the reason there is, and goes to, you know, so we built that lift station. I believe we should maintain that lift station for, I don't know, a good period of time. But I do think that somewhere down the road, if it's 10 years, you know, when the HOA is packed up and there's 50 homeowners there, does it not work?
Oh, that might be right here. Try it.
Better turn it off.
Why you turn it off, dude? Turn the sound stuff on?
The concept is that if there's 50 homeowners in there, and look, these will all be $1 million plus homes. And again, I'm saying if and when, these guys are gonna be paying massive, property taxes. Every one of them will have been some of the only folks ever to pay an impact fee in the city of Harahan at that time. And it seems really reasonable to make that request. And I'll go so far, I'll go a step further to say, I really want it in there because as I speak to, and it's primarily commercial folks, I'm trying to reframe Harahan as okay to do business in. Because I can tell you, by and large, and I think, I want to say that I think I do see that beginning to change around here as is. But without a doubt, when I talk to these big box, or just big folks around those 11 acres, they kind of shrug and go, man, River Ridge is right up the road, and it's sure a lot easier. They got a code of ordinance, Jefferson Parish, as we live by it, it's easy. And now I'll take this all the way back to when I was a kid here, and if anyone remembers when, you know, Winn-Dixie was where Pedro's is now, and it just had like a sense of community, and it had, you know, I'm sure that the property taxes helped quite a bit too, but to the degree that I want to try to bring a grocer back, I can't overstate. And look, this language is not full of teeth on either side, but it is showing us both that it's something we're willing to consider. And I think that without it, when I'm speaking to a grocer or any major commercial person that can bring something in, I don't know, I think it kind of bolsters their opinion of it as not being business friendly. So that's it. So I'd like it for
So you're saying we
consideration.
become more business friendly if we take over your lift station in a reasonable engineering request? I'm lost.
Yes, because you'd be operating like every city out there. It's not normal
Look to the
for,
next mayor on that one.
it's not normal, well, it's quite normal to do it just like this. We're actually, and Mr. Villavaso's here, it's not normal to do it this way. It's normal that we would build it, install it, certify it, your guy certifies it, and then you own it. That's what property taxes are for that specifically. It's not normal this way.
So because Mr. McCarron can't offer an amendment, and I want to hear council discussion on it, I'd like to make this,
I have no
offer
qualms
this
about
amendment.
that at all.
I'd offer this amendment, look for a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to amend, adding the current verbiage to line 258, 259, and 260. Second by Councilman Buddy. All right, Mr. Suffren, go ahead.
Public hearing.
I would like to add to Mr. McCarron's statement that we've had a negotiation tonight, I think, in good faith on both sides. We also have a legal theory of quid pro quo. When you give up something, and the developers made many concessions tonight, you expect something in return. This really creates no obligation for the city,
Yeah, I know.
but creates a good faith obligation to consider.
I was just being disgruntled.
So I just submit to you that out of fairness, you could give developer this one.
Thank you. Any other public hearing?
All right, public hearing is
Open
now
it to
closed.
public.
Y'all ready? Oh, anybody in public hearing wants to come speak? Nope. Okay, public hearing is now closed.
I'll propose that we amend the amended document to add at the end of paragraph 29 the words, "Until such time that the city shall consider upon owner's request an engineering-based solution to a potential transfer of the lift station to city ownership and maintenance on a reasonable good faith basis."
All right, so we have a motion by Councilman Buddy to add such language, 258, 259, and 260, as he just read. I will have a second.
Second.
Second by Councilman Asbill.
I need to think this.
Yeah,
You need to put it out?
it's a pretty big discussion, the decision to make an
Council discussion?
We had a motion and a second.
I'm not ready to vote. No, wait.
Yeah,
Oh, sweet mercy.
yeah, it probably would have been nice to have seen this.
This is easy. It's really, it leaves the city.
While Councilman Chatelain is thinking, what do you mean by engineering-based solution? I don't think that's really an engineering-based solution.
This is just contradicting itself.
Well, it's just the engineer.
Owner association shall maintain lift station in perpetuity until such time that the city shall consider.
It's a
There's no time frame or nothing on here.
It's a true statement, even if it doesn't exist. Let me put that to you. That's true even without the red language.
Right. We could always agree to amend it, except
Right.
you might have 40 people having to be a party to the amendment.
It's true no matter
So
what.
we could wait a year, 10 years?
Correct. Yeah.
I'm ready to vote.
I think it just opens it up to where it's just a good faith. Hey, look, when a city's, when a city feels that it can take on that obligation, I think,
Danny, do you feel the engineering solution verbiage is?
I'm not tied up on any verbiage. All I'm really trying
Yeah.
to get to is saying, hey, we're thinking about acting, I'll say this now, thinking about acting like a normal city, and taking this over.
Guys,
That's all I'm trying to.
I'll say we have
since
a
we've
motion-
opened up, since we opened up the council discussion again, I just want to point out, just reading it to me, it's going to be, we have to consider it. We don't have to do it, right? We have to consider it
Right.
at the owner's request, and it's, a reasonable good faith basis. Now, if the owner came tomorrow and put a request for us to take over that lift station, I think that's not a reasonable good faith basis because they haven't built out the property enough and
Oh, dear God.
People yelling
Maybe grab a cell phone, just be safe.
It was Wayne?
Timmy, with all your influence in the state legislature, why don't you get them changed the law that says elected officials can carry in public
Yeah,
facilities?
no shit.
Seriously,
I think the law says you can't.
you can't,
Says you can't.
you cannot.
I figured they did.
What was it?
They got them in the gas station parking lot. Some
Is
fool
there-
beating on them, going crazy.
Good.
I'm sorry.
This cat was coming through this door like, oh.
I
here
was
we go.
fading
Like
there.
it?
All right, so we have a motion on the floor by Councilman Buddy, second by Councilman Asbill to accept
Wait,
this.
I think I was still in the middle of discussing it, wasn't I?
You were.
So my point was, if they came tomorrow and asked for us to take, if they came tomorrow and asked for us to take over this lift station, it wouldn't be reasonable because they're not even near close to build out. And so I think this, I mean, I think it doesn't have a whole lot of teeth, like you said, and I'm willing to include it. So that's all I got.
Okay. Any other council discussion? All in favor?
Yay.
Yay.
4 yeas, 0 nays. Language is added.
So where do we add that paragraph 29?
And you, Bill, to give us a new revised copy of all of this, right?
I'm just asking,
Yeah.
how many more motions, how many more amendments we got?
I got a bunch.
An hour and 18 minutes worth,
Well,
at
I mean,
least.
there's always at the next council meeting. Or we could do another special.
Let's see if we can get through 'em.
Okay. It's good. This is going to be slow because I'm going now
Yeah,
to
I'm
my
not gonna lie, I
agreement
really
to
don't
your
like this
agreement.
shooting from the hip, because I don't have nothing written in front of me, so I'm gonna read every one of them as you
Yeah.
go through them.
I mean, the good news is if I can figure out, Jason can type it, we can see it in black and white.
Okay.
All right. So we left off on paragraph 25. 21. So I'm just trying to see where we left off here.
Oh, get your key. Think you locked the front door?
I did.
Let me see your key.
Oh, yeah.
I'll leave it alone.
The big fat one, yeah. Councilman Hasbill, isn't there somewhere in the amended agreement that says all the water is going to flow to the detention pond, except I think you amended it to say the colonial lots?
That's right. Paragraph 28.
28?
And it's on the screen if you want.
265, 266.
Okay. 28.
Thanks, Wayne.
Used to be 27.
Thank you.
Oh, I thought it was you, dear.
You gave us the line number, who was that?
Is that Tommy? Oh, thank you, Tommy.
So all the lots facing on Colonial, the front yards can drain to the street?
They already do.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, and I guess just to clarify too, they do currently drain to the street. There's just, so I don't think a lot of people realize this, but on that side of the street, there is a drainage line. There's inlets, there's culverts, it already drains there. Yeah, the golf course is always drained there. And more so than just the front, it actually goes all the way, and I have a topograph I could forward, but it's always drained, admittedly across grass, but from well beyond that cart path to that same inlet, so. It's not altering the drainage.
I'm looking at paragraph currently 29 to see, I think there may have been some changes.
Are we skipping over 28 about the drainage issue?
Yeah, I think,
Okay.
I think, I'm accepting that clarification.
29 is the one we just amended regarding the lift station.
So we're accepting out, on lines 264 and 265, we're accepting out the levy lots because they're covered elsewhere. But this paragraph doesn't apply, correct? There's a provision somewhere. I'm pretty confident that, Jason, that you don't have to go there.
Yes, unless specified otherwise, it's agreed.
And 29 we just amended. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Line, paragraph 30. I'm good with those changes on 30. I'm sorry, you got two 30s again, Jason,
Yeah.
on the first 30.
So just for the public's edification, there are some other formatting things that are going to, changes that are going to take place that you'll see when you get your clean version. We're just not making them tonight because they're just administrative, non-substantive.
So, thanks to Mr. Villavasso's very good explanation of preliminary, conditional, and final, I'm drawn to, as a point of discussion, the payments of the $450,000 and the $50,000 are on final plat plan. I had sort of envisioned that it would be the conditional, where you can build it. Final just says you got to build it in accordance with what you submitted, and you get approval. The biggie is conditional, to let the builder run with the ball. Is there any thought to requesting that these payments be made upon conditional as opposed to final?
I had made that request in our initial negotiations, and Mr. McCarron was opposed to it. I'll let him explain his reasoning. I think it was good reasoning, maybe not for this council or this mayor, but perhaps in the future if he wants to, explain that. If not, I'm willing to leave it like it is.
They were asking Ed about the reasoning for having the payments line up with final as opposed to conditional. And very quickly, I can say it in 1 second, it's, I want to be sure that before I pay something, I can sell something. That simple. There is, if you want to get in a more technical aspect, I think there's a way to do the final with a bond or something. I think I don't know how much you'll want to get into that, but I'm not against utilizing that instrument as well or something, but yeah, I want to be sure I can sell something. And I can't sell anything until it's final.
Thank you.
And just to mention the bond possibility, you could be at the conditional stage, have an approval, have approved plans. You would then do a construction agreement with the city, secured by a bond to complete construction, and the existing city regs permit that. And you could give final plat approval immediately.
After the conditional would be issued.
Right.
And then you could go through that process, and in effect, the final would be guaranteed by the bond.
Correct.
So what would we call that? We would, what would be the term, a bonded final or blank? What do we call that, sir?
It would still be a conditional approval, but the owner can elect to move immediately to final plat approval, and then he can get recorded lots, which he could sell or at least do purchase agreements
No,
for.
I like the concept, and I'm wondering if what we've got written provides for it. Or does it overrule?
No, I think it does provide for it because he would have final plat approval with the bond.
Right, he would just get the final quicker with the bond.
Correct.
Okay.
Perfect. Let's do that when it comes up.
So the way this is currently drafted, the funds are going to go to the wastewater facilities, where wastewater facilities go. And if my memory serves me correct, that's for sewer repairs and improvements.
It's specific to sewer capital, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Which is, I'm good with it. All right. I'm, as the owner knows, and for everybody else's emphasis, I had requested the $750,000 total fees be increased to $850. And my logic was as follows. $500,000 of this is a loan in a low interest rate economy. $250,000 are real additional payments to the city.
Right.
The city was, a year and a half ago, at a negotiating posture, which did not come to fruition, of wanting $1,800,000. The city is settling for $250,000 plus a $500,000 loan. That's a comment. Having said that, I'm fine with paragraph 30A. Councilman Asbill, did you make amendments to B?
On the lots, yes.
Okay,
Is that what you're
yeah,
referencing? Okay.
yeah. So, okay. I'm fine with A, B, and C. I'm not going to propose any of my previously proposed changes. I'm fine with the changes you made to paragraph 32.
Before we move on too fast, I'd like to add to Mr. Tom's comment, because I was a part of the whole negotiation process in the beginning. But what I think that we are trying to take into account here is that JW brought Pump to the River to Jefferson Parish. They brought this whole idea, yeah, they brought it to the parish to come help Harry, and it was their idea. And to me, I think the the 1.8 reducing down to the 750 with 500 being a loan and a $10 million pump to the river is a much better trade-off. And I just honestly thank them for even getting that idea in front of the parish.
I'm looking at paragraph 34. Anybody wants to know where my slow brain is?
Man, you might have should order pizza from Uncle Matt's, huh?
What's that, sir?
Yeah.
Oh.
Everybody knows them. I'm definitely okay.
We had talked in paragraph 35, when I had an opportunity to meet with the owners, about identifying the type of projects that the $100,000 could be used for, or would be used for. I had proposed wording: these funds may be used at the city's sole discretion for the no limits playground, comma, renovation and/or replacement of the existing children's gym set, comma, repairs and/or renovation of the youth baseball field or other capital projects at the Soniat Playground. And I thought we'd had some agreement on that. Danny, was I not correct, or did it just fail to make it into this draft?
No, where's that language you're saying?
What I just
Yeah, the
read,
one that you
it's,
just read?
it's in my proposed ordinance 2021-12. I'll read it again to you if you'd like.
Yeah, well, yeah, go ahead. Yes, sir.
It's the last sentence, so it would replace the last sentence here that reads owner reserves, and the last sentence would read, these funds may be used, comma, in the city's sole discretion, comma, for, colon, no limits playground, comma, renovation and/or replacement of the existing children's play gym set, comma, repairs and/or renovations of the youth baseball field, comma, or other capital projects at Sonia Playground.
Yeah.
So it restricts it, but it allows the council and the mayor to
Yeah.
direct it.
I sort of, we can talk about
I
this
think
for
it
a
should
few.
be a mutual agreement.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was about to say. We can talk about it in a few minutes and see if we can get there. The way I envision it is something on mutual agreement. You know, throw something out and we say yes, and that's it. I almost don't want to limit it because, you know, I used to call it the fire park. I think y'all call it Royland Playground. You know, they want to throw something there and that one's not in, and,
Well, this doesn't, what I've drafted does not include, I hear what you're saying, I agree with
yeah,
you.
you're saying. it
I wouldn't want
include
to, we could spend the money on Royland, but I think the verbiage that I put doesn't say at Soniat.
it. Oh, okay. I'm
It-
sorry.
I-
I thought it said something.
Yeah, I thought you said so.
These funds may be used in the city's sole discretion for, colon, no limits playground, renovation and replacement of the existing children's play gym set, comma, repairs and/or renovations of the youth baseball field or other capital it does say Sonia. And I'm happy to take that out.
Should just be basically Harahan recreation facilities.
Yeah.
All over the parks.
Well, when we did this, I jotted notes down, we were
No,
brainstorming.
you're right. I do. He was right. Restrict these current certain recreation projects. What'd you say, Eric?
Just a Harahan recreation center.
It says recreation project.
Yeah.
Anywhere.
Yeah, I mean.
Anywhere, you might want to create a new one.
If you want to throw the word Harahan in front of recreation, yeah, I mean, that's.
It could just be
fine.
recreation.
It's to,
Yeah, but
mutual.
I think it needs to be mutually agreed upon.
I do too.
I don't think it should be the city's sole discretion where the money is used.
Okay.
No, it should be Eric's discretion.
I think it
Okay,
should be my
It should be
discretion.
Eric's discretion. No, I think it should be mutual.
All right, bringing the council meeting back at 11:04. All right, Councilman Buddy?
Just just as a point of order, I'll go ahead and say that we've got 56 minutes to then try to
Come on,
wrap
we
it
got
up.
this. Let's go.
55.
We got
55
this.
minutes
Come on,
to
we only
wrap
got a
up
page
as
and a
much as
half.
No
possible.
pressure.
Yeah, yeah.
We only
No
got a
pressure.
page and a half.
A who?
A page and a half, that's it.
It's possible.
It's gonna be a quick page.
All right, so
Yeah.
I was proposing something different, so why don't one of you guys take what's up there now?
I move to amend paragraph 35 to add the words Harahan and by mutual agreement of the parties,
Okay, we have a motion on the floor
as
to.
listed on the screen.
We have a motion
Wait,
on the
you
floor.
can't do that.
What you
You
mean?
can't say it's listed on the screen.
It is.
Somebody
We're gonna
can
now
record
open for
that.
public
I said
hearing.
by-
Anybody
yeah.
wants to discuss the changes of paragraphs from the 35 to add Harahan by mutual agreement of the parties? All right, no one coming to speak forth. We'll now close public hearing. Council discussion?
No discussion.
No discussion? All in favor?
Yay.
Yay.
4 yeas, 0 nays, 1 abstention.
Hope.
You okay with Tammy's like, all right, next.
Oops, 4-0. All right.
So Mr. Buddy, I see you have, so you're comparing your ordinance to
Yeah,
Jason's?
that's what I am doing right now, because I didn't get a chance to finish writing them down.
So you're gonna go through them, understand?
Yep.
Okay. We gotta,
There's only a page and a half left, but it's slow and tedious. I apologize, I didn't get to it sooner, just couldn't do it. All right.
Well, we actually talked about making a right of way between our two fences, that we just go back and forth. You see, with my in-laws, that's open that, although I just got rid of my mother-in-law, she lives with me for 6 months, don't go. Hey,
What do you mean by got rid of?
she's in Mobile, she's safe.
all right, we're ready?
So I'd like some clarification or discussion, and maybe by Councilman Asbill and by the city's outside council or the city's council on lines 325 to 327.
Can you give me the paragraph number?
I'm sorry,
36.
36. Thank you.
36, okay, because these.
I had proposed something different. And I'm curious as to the method to do this. You sue for breach of contract?
That's what I would assume.
And in a breach of contract, you don't have to honor things? Well, I mean, what's your remedy in a breach of contract? It's not just suing for collection. You can not do things you're supposed to do under the agreement. What I had proposed was, if the owner does not timely pay city amounts due under this section 7, city will not grant certificate of occupancy. So it was a stick, a big stick. But do we want to get in a position where we have to sue somebody to collect money? Should that happen?
I think,
And other remedies, because breach of contract allows a lot of remedies other than just suing for collection of money.
yeah, so I think Mr. McCarron made this point when we discussed this, and I wholeheartedly agree, is that to be friendly to potential new residents and commercial lot owners in the city, they see that we can hold a CO for something that they fail to do. It's going to be hard to get new people to come into the city. So here, the recourse is against, the direct obligor or obligee.
I mean, I hear the logic.
Yeah.
I hear the logic.
I think that's my preferred method. And also, I mean, you know, these funds are they're gonna be due way before COs. So if we gotta wait to enforce until
Well,
COs start coming up, that's way out.
They may not all be due before COs.
I-
Could be.
I think they are. I mean, 250 is due in 30 days, and the rest is due
You know,
at final plat approval, which is before a CO.
The other thing I had a concern with, and I still do now, you're reminding me, it's the payment of the impact fees are largely based upon final approval of lots 1 to 34. And it's squirrely, but that application for those lots 1 to 34 doesn't have to be built. If the developer comes back with a new plan as they reconsider coming in off of Jefferson Highway and what's best to develop, they can apply for something else. Those lots 1 to 34 may never get built. And we never get paid. So it's a risk.
Yeah, I mean, I think we gotta have some good faith and
Why don't we
just,
say the first 34
and just
lots?
assume they're not gonna say, oh, we're gonna change our submission to 1
Well,
through
you can-
33, just to avoid the payment.
Well,
For whatever it's worth, I don't, you can generalize it to the first 34 lots, that way if we reconfigure or whatever. I think we had talked about that.
I think we may have.
Somebody make an amendment. Somebody
So-
propose
so-
an amendment.
So two issues. First, we're going back to the payment in 30A
Going the wrong way.
and 30B. I agree. I agree.
Of the first 34 lots where?
Yeah, because you already have lots that are created.
Because you got 8, we're about to get 13 on you.
It would be the first 30, it would be the next, I guess.
Take out proposed and put next.
Right, but you can't say first, you already have lots of record.
Can't-
You can't say first, you already have
No,
lots
no,
of
I
record.
said you take out the word proposed and put next.
We can't do that, because then we lose the right on the early release of the $100,000.
I believe they're gonna be in.
Now, how about something along the lines of the first 34 lots excluding lots 1 to 8? 'Cause that's already,
Because
Okay.
not, because we get an early release on 9 through 13. So you'd have to say excluding 9 through,
Would that-
1 through 13.
But 9 to
would that,
13, that's
would that
excluded.
change? Wait, we get the early release on which lots, James?
9 through 13.
Oh,
If 9 through 13 approves.
Right.
That's if 9 through 13 approves.
I'm comfortable with just leaving it like it
I am
is.
comfortable leaving it the way it is.
I say this, I really have no incentive, it's really de-incentivizing to not go forward with that, because otherwise I'd have to go back to preliminary and lose all kind of time.
Pay new filing
Pay new
fees.
filing fees, it's such a low spending on everything.
Yeah, I'm gonna move on.
well, I don't see an appetite here, and I'm not gonna put words in anybody's mouth, but I don't see the benefit of requesting a change on the 1 to 34 lots, payment of the 450.
I'm sorry, what number 50?
No, I'm sorry, I wasn't clear. I don't see an appetite by the council to clarify that 1 to 34 lot risk.
You can make your amendment.
No, I don't think it's necessary. I know I can, and I know I can.
You can make it.
Um, All right. So I'm moving forward. I'm looking now at paragraph 37 to see if there's anything. This is one we talked about earlier. I'm okay with 37, 38, 39, 40.
I'm about to go outside and start beating on the garbage can. What you got? No, but the best. So my mom did. Yeah.
On paragraph 54, line 371,
Line which one, sir?
371,
All right, 371 is paragraph.
40, 54. I'm sorry, 44, 40, yeah, 44.
We weren't that lucky to skip all of them, huh?
Mr. Tom, that ain't right.
You were teasing us.
No, it's scratch out that, well, hold on, it's 45, correct? Line 371?
Right.
45.
Okay. It includes a condition to the payment upon the adoption of a final, and the words that give me cause for concern is non-appealable, valid and enforceable ordinance. I don't know what a non-appealable ordinance is. So if somebody can explain that to me.
Yeah, I'll let one of the attorneys, one of the city's attorneys do that.
Edward Suffern again. It would mean an ordinance whose appeal periods have run. So after the adoption of the ordinance, there's a legal specific time for someone to contest the validity of the ordinance. That time period would have to run. You confirm no appeal has been taken. It is then not appealable.
Do we know what that time period is? Can we put
I
it?
think the man who knows just left the room, but I'm thinking of New Orleans, it's 10
I
days.
think Attorney Best might know, because that's one of the things we did.
Can we put a number of days instead of non-appealable? Because people can file appeals.
Right, but if it's filed within the 30 days, then it's in court, and then it could be appealed, and then you could go to the Supreme Court. So I don't see how you could put a timeline on there.
I agree.
So if somebody files an appeal after that point in time, files a suit, they file the suit, and you try to get it dismissed.
Even if you get it dismissed, it's still subject to appeal,
Right,
and then further appeal.
right. You're making my case here, where the city is doing what it's being asked to do if this document's executed, the ordinance passes, the mayor signs the agreement, and then there's a huge uncertainty about the payments.
But both parties are faced with that uncertainty, and if it's appealed, should the developer be obligated to make payments without the benefit of the bargain? That doesn't seem fair.
I've never seen that kind of verbiage in the contract before, of any sort. So, what's,
I think non-appealable, if we want to discuss it before the amendment's made, I think it speaks for itself, and, you know, yes, of course, you know, someone can try to appeal it in 40 days instead of 30 days, but for our purposes of the contract, it becomes non-appealable when the time has run.
and that's what I'd like to clarify. If a suit's not filed within the statute time, then
Okay.
I mean,
I think it speaks for itself, but if you want to,
Yeah, I don't know what the statute time is, Byron.
30 days.
30 days.
if you want to try to work something up, it's your amendment.
I want to move it along, however everybody's going to vote. I'm going to propose an amendment to paragraph, get this right, 45. Delete the words, comma, non-appealable.
Is that it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll second.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor by Councilman Buddy. We're going to open for public hearing to amend paragraph 45 to remove non-appealable. Anyone want to come speak, please come forth. All right, for public hearing is now open. All right, public hearing is now closed. No one come to speak forth. Council discussion.
No discussion.
Councilman Wheeler.
No, I'm good.
Councilman Chatelain.
Give me a minute.
Floor is yours.
Okay, no second?
Yeah, I second.
Oh, no, you got a second, I'm just thinking.
He's just thinking
On
about
the
the
council.
discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
No council discussion.
It just seems like some of this stuff we're doing is redundant.
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
I'm ready.
okay. I move for the vote.
Okay. All in favor?
Yay?
All opposed?
Nay.
Okay.
You're yea and nay?
Nay.
One yea, 3 nays.
All right,
Motion
move
carries.
along.
I ain't text you.
No, nobody touched you. My wife's texting me the same shit. She's like, what are you doing?
Send a picture of the beat. 0866.
My wife's saying the same thing. Where the hell are you at? She's like, you used to wake up. I'm like, yes, I am, because we are getting this done tonight. I am all in, Mr. Thomas, getting this done.
There ain't no way she believe I was here if my phone was.
My daughter's on
So Ontario recommended that we put a provision in here requiring underground electrical services. I have it in my proposed ordinance. I don't know or believe that our code requires that.
It doesn't. I believe the developers agree to it. I mean,
It-
discuss it with us.
So it doesn't, we did discuss this, or I did discuss it with the developers, and the reason they didn't want to agree to it is because, look, they wanted to put underground on these 8 lots, but the ground conditions didn't allow them to do that because so there are things that are outside of their control that may disallow them from putting underground service.
If
Now,
I-
was it in their control at one time? Perhaps, but when it came around to it, it's
Well-
not the way it worked out.
Well, what was relayed to me by the mayor, as I understood it, was Entergy said there wasn't enough room in that existing right-of-way because of the way the drainage was put down. And I appreciate that. It gets back to my whole concern about what I would call a master development plan and lack thereof. But I'm not sure who told me, and it might have been Eric. He thought the plan was to go, all the electrical for the project's going to come in on those poles and then go underground for the rest of the development. I'd like to make it an obligation, and then the owner and their engineers have to make it happen. Otherwise, we're liable to have poles. They're less expensive to maintain underground.
Underground is less expensive to maintain?
I think they are.
It's a genuine question. I don't know, but at the end of the day, it's not our maintenance. So
Well, it may be,
no, it
based
wouldn't be.
upon what Mr. Villaverde
I guess if we
said.
fire energy, it might be our maintenance, but at the end of the day, it's not going to be. It's not going to be our maintenance to maintain
Yeah.
the electricity right away.
Right.
Am I wrong?
So, look, I'll
could-
just state, the only reason those are in, that's right, is because essentially when the Blake sewer came in, it ate up that servitude. Energy, this was all way before my involvement, and I've tried everything I could to get, to get that underground in there. And obviously, I want it underground. I've stated that the lots have a higher value if they're underground. There is lower maintenance. And if it gives you any comfort, and you can run this by Hamby, make sure that what I'm telling you is right. It's actually not. Let's just first take into effect for a minute and pretend like we're going the rest of the way down Colonial. I think as long as I am doing 10 lots or more, Energy gives me a really solid, I'll say cheap rate to actually run an underground because they want all those customers. And so I have every intention, desire to do underground, but at the same point, no, I don't want it, whatever this is, mandated. Because if I run into another situation, I've got to be able to be fluid, and that's it. But, that's it.
I'm going to pass on that proposed amendment on that. Thank you, Danny, for that information.
Let me tell you something, I know underground's pretty, but we have a problem right there on, shoot, right on the corner of Jefferson Highway, I think it's Sedgefield, and the underground pipe is now broken, and now it's eating up soil out of people's yard. The transformer's in a box on the ground, it's kicked over to the side. I can't get Energy to come out and take a look at it. There's been some issues, I'm not gonna lie. Go look at, right there at the house right on the corner. They got sinkholes in the yard because it's a tube that stuff runs in, and when that tube collapses, the sand just fills in it.
Imperial side?
On Imperial Wood side.
So you think the Entergy conduit is
Correct.
correct,
Oh, I know it is.
filling with sand?
Mr. Mayor, point of order real quick. Is there anyone waiting around to address the council for that specific purpose? Okay,
Even
good.
though I know it is pretty,
Yeah.
it is, I'm sure the technology now is way nicer.
So we'll do that.
Well, we want to make sure that we have time,
Yeah, we'll make sure you have time to.
because we still have addressed
We're
the
almost,
council
I'm
after
almost
we
done.
finish all this.
Just for everybody's
no.
info, I may be
got 30
done
minutes.
I may be done in a minute.
We got good time. We got 30 minutes left. We're making killer time.
Jason, can you scroll down to paragraph 54, please? Should be around line 413. There it is.
Yes, sir. And I will, I'll say that, we talked about at the beginning of the meeting, adding some additional insurance requirements to the end of this paragraph. The attorneys want to get together over the next month to make sure that, to look at the statute, look at the case law, to make sure that that is done absolutely correctly. So they're going to have something ready by the June meeting, and I'll propose that amendment then. And they don't think that it would be substantive enough to make it go back to the planning and zoning process. We could do it that night and be done with it. I know that probably wasn't your comment, but I
No.
wanted to clarify that on
No,
my end
thank
as well. Yeah.
I have one final comment, really, just one. It's regarding a provision that I proposed, which I suspect the city and the owner may have talked about. It was recommended by Ontario. It read, procedures established pursuant to RS 33:4780, period 22, shall include periodic review at least every 12 months, comma, at which time the applicant or his successor in interest thereto shall be required to demonstrate good faith compliance with the terms of this agreement, period. If as a result of such periodic review, comma, the municipality or parish finds and determines on the basis of substantial evidence, comma, that the applicant or successor in interest thereto has not complied in good faith with terms or conditions of this agreement, the municipality or parish may terminate or modify the agreement. And that was something that Ann submitted to me.
Right. So we did discuss, and look, when we did this, we tried to remove as much duplicity as possible, and that is a state statute. So that's going to govern whether it's in here or not. Was the point that me and Mr.
Good
Suffering
point.
kind of
No,
gave
you-
to?
Okay, I'm done.
And because what you said is
I'm done.
exactly the state
When you get
statute.
what you want, you just I'm done.
Well, you can't be done now. We got pizza here.
I know, I'm done. I'm done.
Yeah, duplicity.
You said duplicative.
I did. Because I was going to say duplicative.
He said duplicativity. That's a new one. You can, Jason Masdale coined that
That's
word.
Eric Chatterley word right there.
That's right, that's right.
Okay.
Did you look that up?
Okay, so that's just first reading, right?
Move to open address the council.
Okay, if anybody can come address the council, please come do so. State your name and address at the podium when you would like to come address us. All right, nobody coming to address?
Stand by.
Oh.
You're right. So, point of order. I move to defer approval of the ordinance as amended to the June meeting scheduled June 29th.
And it is gonna go to planning and zoning.
And it will go to planning and zoning in the meantime.
Second.
Okay, second by Councilman Buddy. We have to open for public hearing.
Thank you, City Attorney.
Before we take a vote, anyone come speak on the deferral? All right, no one coming to speak forth. I'll now close public hearing. We have a motion on the floor by Councilman Asbill, second by Councilman Buddy, to defer to the June council meeting. All in favor?
Yay.
4 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent. We have a motion to adjourn?
Move.
Address the council.
Oh, we're gonna do address, I thought we did that. All right, so we have, anyone like to come forth and address the council?
Move to adjourn.
Okay, no one coming forth, we'll close address the council. I have a motion on the floor by Councilman Asbill, second by Councilman Wheeler to adjourn. All in favor?
Yay.
Yay.
4 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent. We are adjourned.